What's happening? I'm GG, man. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chaser. Let me give a shout out to a few people before I get started doing what I'm supposed to be doing here, man. Shout out to Roderick Jackson, Scott Haywood, Blackswood 404, Black Uhuru Strikes, Dr. Thunder, Dr. Tree, Rais Muajid, Leroy Honeycutt, Show Me, The Thinker, Broken Blade, Javon Thompson, Life of Commerce, Super Tech, Waffle Weave, Kisses from Afar, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, Apex Prowler, K-Ron S., Anthony Davis, BGS Ipmore, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Artisan MC, Damon Brown, Donnell 360, Herbert Lewis, Seven Coast Dojo, Roguish Son, Pulpit 28, Michael Ross, Charles Rogers, Papa Didas, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Brotherly Love, Charles Gilmore, Patricia Colley, 7Q Pitt, Kwaku Asasi, Gregory Oliver, Greg, Barry Little, Alan Whitey, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hills, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, Kareem, Doc LaRock, J. Charles, Mark Hotley, Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Odd Collar, Donna Watts, HipHop.CATV, Coach DC, Kashif Caldwell, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolis, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DAC, Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Aaron Infinite, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalonja Collar, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Roman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile AW, W. Pierre 1, Marvin Battle Jr., Forrest Windu, can't forget him. Kevin Marshbank Owens, William Joyner, Tyrone Hampton, Jules Winfield, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Preserved Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and Asangwa. Big up to y'all. Thank you for supporting the Green Gorilla channel, and you know how that go. Big up. So I always forget to do this, man. Let me do something before I get started. Before this bot starts taking off and doing what it wants to do on its own. Because I didn't plan on doing this. I was going to wait until tomorrow, but I felt like, no, let me go ahead and get it out of the way now, because it's not something that I'm really considering to be titillating. Not going to really, hold a lot of people's attention anyway, so it's something more cerebral. But I think it's something that's, vital, necessary if you want to understand politics, as opposed to just being caught into the performance that goes on in Washington contemporarily, which to me is not really indicative of politics in its, true form. It's a lot of bullshit going on in Washington. But that's just my opinion. So, some Amber Alert just going off now. You gotta. That is an Amber Alert. Anyway, man, let me get to what I'm supposed to be getting to, man. Today, what I'm going to talk about, or this evening, I'm going to talk about Rousseau and the social contract and how it differs from what Hobbes has to say and what John Locke has to say. And, I was going to just neglect to do Rousseau at all and just get to the secondary literature on Rousseau and what feminists think about Rousseau. But, I want Rousseau to speak for himself. So I'm just going to read his work and I'll comment from time to time on what he has to say. But, let me get right to it, man. Got him pulled up and ready to go. He is ready to go. He is ready like Freddy. So anyway, man, let me get to it. Pull up StreamYard on my other computer. Monitor what's going on here. All right. Turn the mic off on that. My apologies. All right, so So yeah, this is the social contract. Yeah, I mean, you think you know what it is. I mean, you should have learned it in school. If you didn't learn it in high school, you should have learned it in college. If you didn't go to college, well, you can learn it now just by listening, okay? So anyway, I guess the subtitle is Or the Principles of Political Right, published in 1762, translated by G.D.H. Cole, because it was originally written in French, okay? And so the foreword is, this little treatise is part of a longer work which I began years ago without realizing my limitations, and long since abandoned. Of the various fragments that might have been extracted from what I wrote, this is the most considerable, and I think the least unworthy of being offered to the public. The rest no longer exists. So some of the stuff he's proud of, some of it he is to some degree, just saying it's acceptable. But what he didn't like about what he wrote earlier, he kind of discarded. So this is what he finds acceptable to disseminate to the public. All right. So this is Rousseau on the social contract. Okay. Book 1. So, of course, we already read what, not all, the entirety, but we read some of what Hobbes had to say about the state of nature and the origin of civil society, the condition in which men are in, prior to entering into the covenant or the arrangement or the contract, which is the social contract, to give up a portion of their freedom in order to gain some sort of benefit from the state, okay? So we looked at what Hobbes had to say about it. We looked at what John Locke had to say about it. Now we're going to look at what Jean-Jacques Rousseau has to say about it. Okay? And so he starts off by saying what his intentions are. I mean to inquire if, in the civil order, there can be any sure and legitimate rule of administration, men being taken as they are, and laws as they might be. Okay? In this inquiry, I shall endeavor always to unite what right sanctions with what is prescribed by interest. So he is going to pay attention on one hand to what is right? Also, he's going to try to balance that with what is prescribed by interest. So, I mean, usually, in philosophy, people call this, right versus the good, right? Like, which one should be of paramount importance? Some people say the good, some people say the right, okay? Some people say, the public good comes before rights. Some say rights always trump what's good for society, okay? You can't infringe upon an individual's rights in order to bring about a greater good or a greater boon to society. And there's people who think the converse of that. But anyway, that's pretty much what he's putting here. He wants to balance right and utility together. Anyway, he says he enters upon this task without proving the importance of the subject. I shall be asked if I am a prince or a legislator to write on politics. I answer that I am neither. And that is why I do so, because if I were a prince or a legislator, I wouldn't waste my time saying what wants doing. I should do it or hold my peace, right? Then he goes on to say, as I was born a citizen of a free state and a member of the sovereign, I feel that, however feeble the influence my voice can have on public affairs, the right of voting on them makes it my duty to study them. And I am happy when I reflect upon governments to find my inquiries always furnish me with new reasons for loving that of my own country. Okay? So anyway, what's the subject of the first book? Okay? He says, man is born free and everywhere he is in chains. This is a famous statement. Okay? Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. One thinks himself the master of others and still remains a greater slave than they. How did this change come about? I do not know. What can make it legitimate? That question, I think I can answer. Okay? So, if I took into account only force and the effects derived from it, I should say, as long as a people is compelled to obey and obeys, it does well. As soon as it can shake off the yoke and shakes it off, it does still better. For regaining its liberty by the same right as took it away, either it is justified in resuming it, or there was no justification for those who took it away. But the social order is a sacred right, which is the basis of all other rights. Nevertheless, this right does not come from nature and must therefore be founded on conventions. Before coming to that, I have to prove what I have just asserted. So he's saying a lot in that small little sentence, that paragraph right there. Okay? The social order is a sacred right, which is the basis of all other rights. Nevertheless, this right does not come from nature and must therefore be founded on conventions. Before coming to that, I have to prove what I have just asserted. And he's also talking about force and how force doesn't necessarily make a legitimate state. Force by itself doesn't actually work. So shout out to Red Pill Awareness and Big Business. Big busyness. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, bro. And I'm trying to do it without a lot of fanfare right now. I could have done this at 5:15, but I wanted to do it later where people who are really serious about learning this stuff would actually, come and join in. But anyway, the first societies, what were they like? Okay. The first societies. Now, it's amazing what he says, right? Check this shit out now. The most ancient of all societies, and the only one that is natural, is the family. And even so, the children remain attached to the father only so long as they need him for their preservation. As soon as this need ceases, the natural bond is dissolved. The children, released from the obedience they owed to the father, and the father, released from the care he owed his children, return equally to independence. For if they remain united, they continue no longer naturally, but voluntarily. And the family itself is then maintained only by convention. So in other words, after you reach a certain age and all of the duties that the father owes to the children are basically taken care of, and the child is then able to take care of himself, right? That child is now independent. But if they remain united as a family, if children continue to honor their fathers, they do so voluntarily, right? But the larger point being made here is that of all the societies, right, the only one that is actually natural is the family. Now, some people are going to say that, the family is not natural, that in and of itself, it's a social convention. But notice, though, like what he's saying, like this, he writes at a time when patriarchy actually existed. When it was assumed that the father was actually the caretaker of children, where he actually was the head of the family. Not so today. So all of this, all of the words and the political rambling about dismantling the patriarchy, it's already been dismantled. I'm tired of hearing that shit. Oh, we gotta get rid of the patriarchy. It's fucking gone already. It's already gone. It's done already. Anyway, this common liberty results from the nature of man. His first law is to provide for his own preservation. His first cares are those which he owes to himself. And as soon as he reaches years of discretion, he is the sole judge of the proper means of preserving himself, and consequently becomes his own master. The family then may be called the first model of political societies. The ruler corresponds to the father, and the people to the children, and all, being born free and equal, alienate their liberty only for their own advantage. The whole difference is that in the family, the love of the father for his children repays him for the care he takes of them, while in the state, the pleasure of commanding takes place of the love which the chief cannot have for peoples under him. In other words, in the family, the father actually loves his children and wants to see what's best for them. Typically, the state, the leadership in the state, they don't give a fuck about the citizens in a vast majority of instances. You can take that with a grain of salt, you believe it or not, whatever, it's on you, okay? So then he begins to talk about Grotius, okay? He says, Grotius denies that all human power is established in favor of the governed, and quotes slavery as an example. His usual method of reasoning is constantly to establish right by fact. It would be possible to employ a more logical method, but none could be more favorable to tyrants. It is then, according to Grotius, doubtful whether the human race belongs to 100 men or that 100 men to the human race. And throughout his book, he seems to incline to the former alternative, which is also the view of Hobbes, namely that the human race belongs to 100 men, as opposed to 100 men who are wealthy belonging to the human race, right? Anyway, on this showing, the human species is divided into so many herds of cattle, each with its own ruler, who keeps guard over them for the purpose of devouring them. Goes on to say, a shepherd is of a nature superior to that of his flock. The shepherds of men, that is, their rulers, are of a nature superior to that of the peoples under them. Thus, Philo tells us the Emperor Caligula reasoned, concluding equally well either that kings were gods or that men were beasts. And you know, Caligula was a terrible Roman emperor. I mean, a morally depraved tyrant. Okay? One of the worst human beings that existed as an emperor in the Roman Empire. But I'm not going to even go there. Anyway, the reasoning of Caligula agrees with that of Hobbes and Grotius. Aristotle, before any of them, had said that men are by no means equal naturally, but that some are born for slavery and others for dominion. Now, I don't know if you believe that or not. I do believe that, and let's just be honest about this, not everyone is born equal. Not everyone is born equally beautiful. Not everyone is born equally strong, equally intelligent, and a whole host of things and factors, right? This is true, but making the further, claim that, some people are born for slavery and others for, dominion. Now, I don't know, how far down that rabbit hole I'm willing to go. Because, historically in this country, it has been asserted that, black folks are born for slavery and that white folks are born for dominion. So you ask yourself the question, do you believe that statement to be true? Right? Aristotle was right, Rousseau says, but he took the effect for the cause. Nothing can be more certain than that every man born in slavery is born for slavery. Slaves lose everything in their chains, even the desire of escaping from them. They love their servitude, as the comrades of Ulysses loved their brutish condition. If then there are slaves by nature, it is because there have been slaves against nature. Force made the first slaves, and their cowardice perpetuated the condition. Damn. Damn. He says, I have said nothing of King Adam or Emperor Noah, father of the three great monarchs who shared out the universe, like the children of Saturn, whom some scholars have recognized in them. I trust to getting due thanks for my moderation, for being a direct descendant of one of these princes, perhaps of the eldest branch. He's being, facetious right here. How do I know that a verification of titles might not leave me the legitimate king of the human race? In any case, there can be no doubt that Adam was sovereign of the world, as Robinson Crusoe was of his island, as long as he was his only inhabitant. And this empire had the advantage that the monarch, safe on his throne, had no rebellions, wars, or conspirators to fear. And then this brings him into, the third section of book one, which I'll get to in a second. I want to stop some of the noise that's going on in the background here. So I'm going to give you a quick break right fast, and when I come right back, I'll be right back with the next phase of this. Be right back in 1 second. All right, I'm back. And sorry for the disruption, but I wanted to make sure that a lot of background noise was eliminated. So anyway, getting back to the subject at hand, man. Getting back to what we're talking about. We're reading Rousseau's The Social Contract. And the reason we're reading it is because I've already read portions of Thomas Hobbes and what he's had to say. I've read portions of John Locke and what he's had to say. So I thought it only fitting to read Rousseau to give you some sort of indication of what he thinks. All right. And I did it at this hour so I could do it without fanfare and have only people who really want to actually understand this shit be present. But anyway, so the right of the strongest. A lot of people always talk about might makes right and how, only the strong should be leaders and things of this nature. And I think that more than anything else, the social contract theorists, each one of them makes the assertion that, look, that's just not a good argument. Not a good argument, okay? So anyway, let's look at what Rousseau has to say about it. He says, the strongest is never strong enough to be always the master, unless he transforms strength into right and obedience into duty. Hence, the right of the strongest, which, though to all seeming meant ironically, is really laid down as a fundamental principle. But are we never to have an explanation of this phrase? Force is a physical power, and I fail to see what moral effect it can have. To yield to force is an act of necessity. Right? And seems pretty convincing to me. Not of will. At the most, an act of prudence. In what sense can it be a duty? So if somebody has a gun to your head and they tell you to dance, I mean, you're not doing it out of duty, you're doing it out of necessity. If a ruler is ruling and forcing you to obey his rules and his laws, you're doing so out of necessity, not out of a duty to abide by the law. I think that's what he's trying to get at here, especially if the whole legitimacy of the rule is predicated on force and strength and might making right. Anyway, he says, suppose for a moment that this so-called right exists, might making right? I maintain that the sole result is a mass of inexplicable nonsense. For if force creates right, the effect changes with the cause. Every force that is greater than the first succeeds to its right. As soon as it's possible to disobey with impunity, disobedience is legitimate. And the strongest being always in the right, the only thing that matters is to act so as to become the strongest. But what kind of right is that which perishes when force fails? If we must obey per force, there is no need to obey because we ought. And if we are not forced to obey, we are under no obligation to do so. Clearly, the word right adds nothing to force. In this connection, it means absolutely nothing. And I agree with him here. I'm in agreement with this statement. What good is, there's always going to be somebody stronger than you anyway. And if the only thing that gives you the right to be in a leadership position is your strength, then what's the reason for someone to have a duty to you? Because there's always going to be someone to come along who's stronger. I mean, it just makes sense to me, okay? Anyway, obey the powers that be. If this means yield to force, it is a good precept, but superfluous. I can answer for its never being violated. All power comes from God, I admit, but so does all sickness. Damn. Does that mean that we are forbidden to call in the doctor? A brigand surprises me at the edge of a wood. Must I not merely surrender my purse on compulsion? But even if I could withhold it, am I in conscience bound to give it up? For certainly the pistol he holds is also a power. Let us then admit that force does not create right, and that we are obliged to obey only legitimate powers. In that case, my original question recurs. And of course, look, let me just say this, man. What most of these men are arguing, from Hobbes to Locke to Rousseau, is that initially, in a pre-social state, Everybody has the capacity to do what they want. Everybody's absolutely free to do whatever it is that they want. Protect their lives in any way they can. Okay? And the only reason that you agree to give up a portion of all of the freedom that you have is that there is some benefit bestowed on you by the state. But the state can't basically say that it's legitimate because it has the power to make you obey. That does not make that power a legitimate power. I mean, these are arguments. You can agree with them, you can disagree with them. But I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, just think about black folks and their condition in the United States of America. How they were brought here, what they were forced to do hundreds, a century and a half ago, whatever the case may be. Some people think it's important. Some people think it's not important. Some people say it's in the ancient past. Some people say that there are reverberations from the past, institutionally and systematically, right, that have some sort of effect on us today. Whatever you think, hey, man, it's on you, okay? But ultimately, they're saying that the government, because they have police with pistols and officials with jails and people, bailiffs and sheriffs and so forth who are willing to throw you in jail, that in and of itself does not make the laws and the force that they control you with legitimate. There has to be something deeper, something more substantive there. Slavery. Check it out. Since no man has a natural authority over his fellow and force creates no right, we must conclude that conventions form the basis of all legitimate authority among men. No man has natural authority over his fellow, and force creates no right. So we must conclude that conventions, agreements, contracts form the basis of all legitimate authority among men. If an individual, says Grotius, can alienate his liberty and make himself the slave of a master, why could not a whole people do the same and make itself subject to a king? There are in this passage plenty of ambiguous words which would need explaining, but let us confine ourselves to the word alienate. To alienate is to give or to sell. Now, a man who becomes the slave of another does not give himself. He sells himself, at the least for his subsistence. But for what does a people sell itself? A king is so far from furnishing his subjects with their subsistence that he gets his own only from them. And according to Rabelais, kings do not live on nothing. I mean, look, ultimately what he's saying here is that, look, even if it were the case that a master provides subsistence to his slaves, it's not the case that kings provide subsistence to their subjects. Rather, the exact opposite is the case. But I would go so far as to say that even in the case of slaves who do all the work and who perform all the toil, that they also are providing the subsistence for the master as the subjects of a nation state do for its kings. But that's just my, opinion. Anyway, do subjects then give their persons on condition that the king takes their goods also? I fail to see what they have left to preserve. It will be said that the despot assures his subjects civil tranquility. Granted, but what do they gain? If the wars his ambition brings down upon them, his insatiable avidity, and the vexations and the vexations conduct of his ministers press harder on them than their own dissensions would have done. What do they gain if the very tranquility they enjoy is one of their miseries? Tranquility is found also in dungeons. But is that enough to make them desirable places to live in? The Greeks imprisoned in the cave of the Cyclops lived there very tranquilly while they were awaiting their turn to be devoured. And I mean, look, this is why Rousseau is actually like a genius, man. I mean, he has a way with words, okay? Anyway. So peace in and of itself is not enough. Anyway, to say that a man gives himself gratuitously is to say what is absurd and inconceivable. Such an act is null and illegitimate from the mere fact that he who does it is out of his mind. To say the same of a whole people is to suppose a people of madmen, and madness creates no right. So a person who would freely give himself up over to slavery is stupid. But a whole nation that would do the same thing is even worse. They're madmen, okay? Hey, BGS, I don't know how many people watching right now, 30 people or so, and how many likes I got right now, man. I can't even get no likes. I need to shut this shit down. I'm trying to give you a political education. All I'm doing is reading what Rousseau is saying so that you can have some understanding of what Rousseau is actually saying. Some of y'all only get your politics from Fox News or blog sites and shit. And then you claim to be so politically savvy. Like, how the fuck can you be politically savvy if you don't know the philosophical underpinnings of the state in which you live? And then not only that, you don't just get it from secondary sources, but you look at the actual words that were written by the people who were philosophers who actually created the ideas which the statesmen, which you honor, mindlessly, because you don't even know what the fuck they said. Or why they said what they said and the ruminations that led to what they said. But we got a lot of politically savvy motherfuckers in this space. I'm like, how can you be politically savvy? You don't even know the shit. But anyway, man, it just befuddles my brain, man. I'm just being honest about that. It befuddles my brain how you can have so many politically astute people who don't know any of the underpinnings or the rudiments of politics and the philosophy which led to the development of the kind of state in which you live currently. And to argue you up and down, tell you how fucked up you are, how wrong you are policy-wise, but don't know anything about the philosophical underpinnings of what it is that they adhere to ideologically. Anyway, man, before I digress too far, even if each man could alienate himself, he could not alienate his children. They are born free. They're born men and free. Their liberty belongs to them. And no one but they has the right to dispose of it. Before they come to years of discretion, the father can, in their name, lay down conditions for their preservation and well-being, but he cannot give them irrevocably and without conditions. Such a gift is contrary to the ends of nature and exceeds the right of paternity. It would therefore be necessary in order to legitimize an arbitrary government that in every generation the people should be in a position to accept or reject it. But were this so, the government would no longer be arbitrary or would be no longer arbitrary. To renounce liberty is to renounce being a man. To surrender the rights of humanity and even its duties. For him who renounces everything, no indemnity is possible. Such a renunciation is incompatible with man's nature. To remove all liberty from his will is to remove all morality from his acts. Finally, it is an empty and contradictory convention that sets up, on the one side, absolute authority, and on the other, unlimited obedience. Is it not clear that we can be under no obligation to a person from whom we have the right to exact everything? Does not this condition alone, in the absence of equivalence or exchange, in itself involve the nullity of the act? For what right can my slave have against me, when all that he has belongs to me? And his right being mine. This right of mine against myself is a phrase devoid of meaning. Grotius and the rest find in war another origin for the so-called right of slavery. The victor having, as they hold, the right of killing the vanquished. The latter can buy back his life at the price of his liberty. And this convention is the more legitimate because it is to the advantage of both parties. And we talked about this just the other day. The delaying of death. And even Locke talks about this, but it's primarily something that Grotius talks about, right? The delaying of death. But it is clear that this supposed right to kill the conquered is by no means reducible or deducible, from the state of war. But it is clear that this supposed right to kill the conquered is by no means deducible from the state of war. Men, from the mere fact that, while they are living in their primitive independence, they have no mutual relations stable enough to constitute either the state of peace or the state of war, cannot be naturally enemies. War is constituted by a relation between things and not between persons. And as the state of war cannot arise out of simple personal relations, but only out of real relations, private war, or war of man with man, can exist neither in the state of nature where there is no constant property, nor in the social state where everything is under the authority of the laws. So here you see, thank you, King Vegata. Appreciate that donation, man. So here you see what he has to say about war, which is different than from what Hobbes has to say and different from what Grotius has to say about war, okay? And he's saying basically when men live in a primitive state of independence, they don't have relationships that are stable enough to either constitute peace or war. And so people within this primitive state are not natural enemies. But, you know, Rousseau and Hobbes think differently about the comportment and the disposition of people who exist within the confines of the state of nature. They think differently about it. Hobbes thinks that human beings are violent, avaricious, egoistic, especially when there's a scarcity of resources. Rousseau is going to say, in a natural state, there's so many resources, hardly scarcity at all. And that there's a natural pity or natural empathy that humans have for one another. anyway, he says, look, there is no constant notion of property either. And this is where him and Hobbes kind of agree, but where he and John Locke depart, where they split. Because John Locke is going to say people can acquire property in nature through their labor. When they mix their labor with, a plot of land, or when they gather belongings or things within the scope of nature, that thing that they mix their labor with, or that project that they mix their labor into, becomes their possession and not, something that another can claim a right to. But Rousseau is going to say there is no property in the state of nature. There's no constant notion of property there, right? But this is where he and Hobbes kind of agree, right? Anyway, he goes on to say individual combats, duels, and encounters are acts which cannot constitute a state, while the private wars authorized by the establishments of Louis IX, King of France, and suspended by the peace of God, or abuses of feudalism, in itself an absurd system if ever there was one, and contrary to the principles of natural right and all good polity. So, you have to look and see what, Louis IX, King of France, what kind of private wars that these men engaged in. And for what reasons, what reasons lie behind them. Insults. Who's going to drag you into a combat? And for what reason? Is it legitimate? Because it's a threat from a neighboring state? Or is it based on some personal issue that one noble has with another? Anyway, war then is a relation, not between man and man, but between state and state. And individuals are enemies only accidentally, not as men, nor even as citizens, but as soldiers, not as members of their country, but as its defenders. Finally, each state can have for enemies only other states and not men. For between things disparate in nature, there can be no real relation. So anyway, he's saying a lot about who really are the enemies, who citizens really aren't enemies of other citizens, especially in combat. It's soldiers who are enemies, right? Furthermore, this principle is in conformity with the established rules of all times and the constant practice of all civilized peoples. Declarations of war are intimations less to powers than to their subjects. The foreigner, whether king, individual, or people, who robs, kills, or detains the subjects without declaring war on the prince is not an enemy, but a brigand, a thief. Even in real war, a just prince, while laying hands in the enemy's country on all that belongs to the public, respects the lives and goods of individuals. He respects rights on which his own are founded. The object of the war being the destruction of the hostile state. The other side has a right to kill its defenders while they are bearing arms. But as soon as they lay them down and surrender, they cease to be enemies or instruments of the enemy and become once more merely men whose life no one has any right to take. Sometimes it's possible to kill the state without killing a single one of its members. And war gives no right, which is not necessary to the gaining of its object. These principles are not those of Grotius. They are not based on the authorities of poets or the authority of poets, but derived from the nature of reality and based on reason. So you see the differentiation, right, between what you really you don't know what Grotius said. So, but he's responding to Grotius. And the idea that people can become subjects because they could be killed if they don't become subjects. They can be made into, being servants of a king, because if not, they could be killed. The right of conquest has no foundation other than the right of the strongest. If war does not give the conqueror the right to massacre the conquered peoples, the right to enslave them cannot be based upon a right which does not exist. No one has a right to kill an enemy except when he cannot make him a slave. And the right to enslave him cannot therefore be derived from the right to kill him. It is accordingly an unfair exchange to make him buy, at the price of his liberty, his life, over which the victor holds no right. Is it not clear that there is a vicious circle in founding the right of life and death on the right of slavery, and the right of slavery on the right of life and death? And this is what makes Rousseau a genius. He's basically saying that this is a circular kind of argument being made about the right to enslave somebody. Even if we assume this terrible right to kill everybody, I maintain that a slave made in war or a conquered people is under no obligation to a master except to obey him as far as he is compelled to do so. By taking an equivalent for his life, the victor has not done him a favor. Instead of killing him without profit, he has killed him usefully. So far then is he from acquiring over him any authority in addition to that of force, that the state of war continues to subsist between them. Their mutual relation is the effect of it, and the usage of the right of war does not imply a treaty of peace. A convention has indeed been made, but this convention, so far from destroying the state of war, presupposes its continuance. So in other words, this whole notion of, peace existing between the master and the slave, no, it's a continuous, ongoing state of war. So, from whatever aspect we regard the question, the right of slavery is null and void. Not only is being illegitimate, but also because it is absurd and meaningless. The words slave and right contradict each other and are mutually exclusive. It will always be equally foolish for a man to say to a man or to a people, I make with you a convention wholly at your expense and wholly to my advantage. I shall keep it as long as I like, and you will keep it as long as I like. I agree with that, bro. I agree with that statement, man. Let me read that paragraph again, because I agree with that wholeheartedly. It will always be equally foolish for a man to say to a man or to a people, I make with you a convention wholly at your expense and wholly to my advantage. I shall keep it as long as I like, and you shall keep it as long as I like. No. That's some bullshit. Okay? Then he says that we must always go back to a first convention. Okay? Even if I granted all that I have been refuting, the friends of despotism would be no better off. There will always be a great difference between subduing a multitude and ruling a society. Even if scattered individuals were successively enslaved by one man, however numerous they might be, I still see no more than a master and his slaves, and certainly not a people and its ruler. I see what may be termed an aggregation, but not an association. There is as yet neither public good nor body politic. The man in question, even if he has enslaved half the world, is still only an individual. His interest, apart from that of others, is still a purely private interest. If this same man comes to die, his empire after him remains scattered and without unity, as an oak falls and dissolves into a heap of ashes when the fire has consumed it. A people, says Grotius, can give itself to a king. Then, according to Grotius, a people is a people before it gives itself. The gift is itself a civil act and implies public deliberation. It would be better, before examining the act by which a people gives itself to a king, to examine that by which it has become a people. For this act, being necessarily prior to the other, is the true foundation of society. Indeed, if there were no prior convention, where, unless the election were unanimous, would be the obligation on the minority to submit to the choice of the majority. How have 100 men who wish for a master the right to vote on behalf of 10 who do not? The law of majority voting is itself something established by convention and presupposes unanimity on one occasion at least. That's an important paragraph there. How do you come to the agreement that the majority rules? Everyone has to agree on that, right or wrong. Anyway, the social compact, and this might be as far as I go, because I'm getting almost close to an hour, okay? I might go one more after this, but, this stuff kind of gets lengthy, okay? The social compact. I suppose men to have reached the point at which the obstacles in the way of their preservation in the state of nature showed their power of resistance to be greater than the resources at the disposal of each individual for his maintenance in that state. That primitive condition can then subsist no longer, and the human race would perish unless it changed its manner of existence. So in other words, there's something happening within the state of nature whereby men need to come together and to form a convention in order to be able to survive it. And if not, they would perish. If they go about their own individual way, right? But as men cannot engender new forces, but only unite and direct existing ones, they have no other means of preserving themselves than the formation by aggregation of a sum of forces great enough to overcome the resistance. These they have to bring into play by means of a single motive power and cause to act in concert. This sum of forces can arise only where several persons come together. But as the force and liberty of each man are the chief instruments of his self-preservation, how can he pledge them without harming his own interest and neglecting the care he owes to himself? This difficulty in its bearing on my present subject may be stated in the following terms. And this is important because this is where politics for Rousseau differs from politics from Locke, differs from the left and the right, differs from people who perceive democracy and politics as just doing what's in your interest, as opposed to doing what's best for the public good. This is important. But a lot of people don't get this. A lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people never even think about this, which is unfortunate. It means that you have received a bankrupt education, quite honestly. So the problem is this: to find a form of association which will defend and protect with the whole common force the persons and goods of each associate, and in which each, while uniting himself with all, may still obey himself alone and remain as free as before. BJMJJ, like Rousseau is being humble and being facetious, to be perfectly honest, when he said that this is not really worthy of publication or whatever. They went through a whole bunch of stages of basically presenting themselves as humble, so as not to arouse, the whole, notion that this man is, well, I'm arrogant. No, I come to you humbly and offer these kind words to you in earnest, as worthless as they are. You get what I'm saying here, okay? So he knows he has some important things to say. But also, you have to be aware that Rousseau exists at a time in which the social order is beginning to change. Things are beginning to morph. So he's talking at a time in which common lay persons really, like challenging kings and nobles, that's a dangerous enterprise. But, men have basically, they're putting their feet in the water like, okay, there's some piranhas in here, but I'm putting my feet in it. I don't give a damn. I'm stepping out there. I'm jumping, like what they call that dude who was using the auto-tune? He said he jumping out the window with this one. They jumping out the window. They saying what they have to say. Now, I'll tell you this. Some of the shit that Rousseau wrote caused him to be exiled from his country, man. Talk about being canceled. Like, you're no longer part of this fucking state. Get out of here. That way. So this, like, the sum of like what Rousseau is talking about, like this is clearly the issue. How can you develop a form of association that's going to protect the whole? So how do you unite yourself to a group and still be able to obey your own self while being a member of the group? How do you do it? How is it possible to balance the interest of the group versus your own interest? How is it possible to do that? That's basically what he's saying there. How do you balance what's best for you and what's best for the entirety of the group? And you know that, they, even as a matter of association amongst the founding fathers of this country, they said it, e pluribus unum. Or did they not say that? They knew that their association and their connection and conjunction made them stronger than them acting individually. Even the states understood this. So that's the problem. How do you find a form of association? I wish I could, won't let me go to the mode where I can edit, but I was going to highlight that. Anyway, this is the fundamental problem of which the social contract provides the solution. How do you balance individual interest with that of the interest of the group? The right versus the good. Because the good is what's for the group. Right is what's for you individually. In my viewpoint, and this is just my viewpoint, too many people in this culture and in this society are preoccupied with what is just best for them, their own goddamn self. Everybody's a fucking egoist. Everybody's looking out for number one. I'm looking out for me. But the problem is, when you got a whole bunch of individuals only looking out for themselves, you create a suboptimal situation. It's like the kind of situation that comes about or results from the prisoner's dilemma. But I don't want to get into that right now. You should already know what the prisoner's dilemma is. Anyway, the clauses of this contract are so determined by the nature of the act that the slightest modification would make them vain and ineffective, so that, although they have perhaps never been formally set forth, they are everywhere the same and everywhere tacitly admitted and recognized until, on the violation of the social compact, each regains his original rights and resumes his natural liberty while losing the conventional liberty in favor of which he renounced it. These clauses, properly understood, may be reduced to one: the total alienation of each associate, together with all his rights, to the whole community. For in the first place, as each gives himself absolutely, the conditions are the same for all. And this being so, no one has any interest in making them burdensome to others. Now, this is controversial here, okay? Moreover, the alienation being without reserve, the union is as perfect as it can be, and no associate has anything more to demand. For if the individuals retained certain rights, there would be no common superior to decide between them and the public. Each, being on one point his own judge, would ask to be so on all. The state of nature would thus continue, and the association would necessarily become inoperative or tyrannical. So in other words, all this freedom and liberty, you hand it over to the community. Everybody gives themselves absolutely to the association. The conditions are the same for everyone. So no one is more burdensome on anyone than anybody else, or on the group than anyone else. That's the alienation, okay? Finally, each man, in giving himself to all, gives himself to nobody. And there is no associate over whom he does not acquire the same rights as he yields others over himself, as he gains an equivalent for everything he loses, an increase of force for the preservation of what he has. So let me read that again because I kind of jumbled it. Each man, in giving himself to all, gives himself to nobody. And there is no associate over whom he does not acquire the same right as he yields over others himself. He gains an equivalent for everything he loses, and an increase of force for the preservation of what he has. If then we discard from the social compact what is not of its essence, we shall find it reduces itself to the following terms. Each of us puts his person and all his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will. And in our corporate capacity, we receive each member as an indivisible part of the whole. So everybody puts his person and all his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will. And in our corporate capacity, we receive each member as an indivisible part of the whole. And I got to read the next section and then I'm done with this, okay? I got to read 7 because that's important. So at once, in place of the individual personality of each contracting party, this act of association creates a moral and collective body composed of as many members as the assembly contains votes, and receiving from this act of unity its common identity, its life, and its will. This public person, so formed by the union of all other persons, formerly took the name of city and now takes that of republic or body politic. It is called by its members state when passive, sovereign when active, and power when compared with others like itself. Those who are associated in it take collectively the name of people, and severally are called citizens, as sharing in the sovereign power, and subjects as being under the laws of the state. But these terms are often confused and taken one for another. It is enough to know how to distinguish them when they are being used with precision. So, I mean, in essence, the people come together and they alienate themselves from their own freedom to become a member of the sovereign. And their individual wills, as they discuss and deliberate about matters or affairs pertaining to their own good collectively, not individually, but collectively, becomes what is sovereign, the sovereign will. This is different than the way we think about politics currently. We think about politics like what's best for me, like a business. The norms, the values, and the principles by which businesses conduct business and operate, they don't belong, related to Rousseau, they don't belong in the state. They don't belong there. It's important for you to understand this. When you go to Walmart and you decide what the fuck you gonna buy, like I'm gonna get these drawers or another pair, I'm getting the Fruit of the Loom or I'm about to buy Hanes. That's different than you deciding on a referendum related to the state. I put out 2 videos today. Well, yesterday. I put out 2 videos. One video was about endocrine. What was the name of the video? It had to do with endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now businesses decide all day, every day. Well, okay, well, this is efficient. This works for us. It can help us make money quickly. It's efficient at being able to, make cups and containers and trash cans and, things to store in refrigerators and so on and so forth. So a business may decide, okay, this is efficient, this works, it'll make money, it's cost effective, so on, et cetera, et cetera. But those kind of concerns should not enter into the state. Yeah, the state has to be somewhat efficient and not be wasteful, but the state has to think more than about just efficiency. The state has to think about what's good for the entirety of the state and its members in the long run. So if it is the case that we know that businesses are utilizing and manufacturing products that are creating low testosterone, and they are basically disrupting the endocrine system, maybe perhaps the state should tell these businesses, stop doing this shit. It's unsustainable. We're creating the conditions for which humanity, even natural life, it's going to be, you're disrupting the balance of nature. But I also put out a video about Martin Heidegger and his idea about the technological mode of being. And the two go together. Modernity and the technological mode of being are connected. It's about being efficient, systems thinking, creating or generating a profit to the neglect of all other concerns. And that's the problem. And Rousseau identifies this problem. I hear you, the thinker. You were thinking about utilitarianism. I couldn't think in your line of thought because I was too busy thinking of my own. The question is, do the thoughts and the machinations that go through the minds of business persons, do they belong in the confines of the state? One can argue they don't belong there. Self-interest is fine for CEOs, it's not fine for presidents. But now we have an inverted kind of system where we think, okay, well, if he was a good business person, he'll be a good, politician, he'll be a good leader. Bullshit. Bullshit. And that's the problem, T-Fitness, for you, that businesses are telling the state what to do. This is an issue. This is a problem. It is the case that the state is married to corporate interest because the financial sector is largely controlled by the corporate sector. And there has to be a cooperation between the state and corporatism. But it's gotten out of hand. Not to mention the fact that, look, America is a materially rich country to a certain extent, but it doesn't mean that it always will be. And also, there is no rough equality in the contemporary economic state of America. There's nothing. This is one of the most skewed, times in relation to, just distributive justice in the history of this country, period. But these people are destroying the fucking planet. It just is what it is. They're destroying humanity right now. Right now, people looking for efficiency, thinking about technology, thinking about ways to make money, have created negative externalities. But everybody wants to bury their head in the sand and act like this shit ain't happening. And right now, the greatest distraction is the politics of fucking and recognition and everything else. The politics of, well, I want to be acknowledged. I want everyone to see me as a woman now. Like, that shit ain't got shit to do with like the problems that humanity are going to be confronted with. That's minuscule on the scale. But right now, we don't have to pay attention to anything other than the politics of recognition and fucking. We don't have to, we don't even have the time to pay attention to anything else. And this, to me, is quintessential, you know, in relation to what Rousseau is talking about, because now we've gotten into identity politics, and identity politics is self-interested, egoistic from the beginning. You don't even give a fuck about the whole. It's about me and my constituency and my interest group and my people and me and mine. And that's the issue. Everybody only gives a fuck about themselves. It happens in interpersonal relationships among people, men and women. It colors our entirety of reality. We can't get out of it. And it's sick. It is sick. It's sick. Everybody's thinking about their own personal and freedom and liberty. And the liberty is only of a negative kind. It's not a liberty of a positive kind. Like the only liberty we understand is the liberty to do whatever the fuck we want to do. That's not liberty to me. I'm just being honest. Just being able to do whatever you want to do, that's not liberty. That's one of the preconditions for liberty is not to be forced. That's to be understood. But that's a precondition, not to be forced, a precondition for you to be able to do other things with your freedom so as to attain the good life. That's the beginning, not the end. That's a precondition, not the consequence. But you know, you don't want to listen to me because I ain't out here talking slick about black women every fucking day. I don't have anything to say, right? It's a lot of shit going on in the world today, man, that's bigger than whether or not you can get some pussy and whether or not these women acting right. And I'm not saying it ain't, it ain't important. It is. I mean, but you can get caught up into that shit and never enter out of it and think about what's going on in the world more broadly. But that's just my opinion, though. I had a guy yesterday or a day ago, whatever, tell me the guy wasn't even 20 years old about logic and emotionality and rationality. I'm like, dude, a lot of guys don't even know what logic is. Don't even know how to perform a fucking proof in propositional logic, but will argue with me about being logical. Man, we are fucked, man. And this guy has ideas about women and the world and reality, and hasn't even experienced. The dude ain't even 21. I'm 50 years old. This dude is 20. I got 30 more years experience than this guy has. He's closer to grade school than I am to college. This guy was just watching fucking Sesame Street 7, 8 years ago. But I'm supposed to gain my understanding about reality in the world from a young motherfucker and what logic is. Like this is crazy to me, man. We got a system that is fucked up. The values we hold are fucking like they're inverted. It's topsy-turvy. So anyway, he says this, and I got to go into this subject of the sovereign, because ultimately, I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. We are the sovereign. The public is the sovereign. Especially when it votes and when it engages in political discourse and political activity, it doesn't think just about itself, but about what's best for the unit, the collective. It's easy to go to politics and to say, okay, well, I'm a rich, wealthy motherfucker and I'm going to make laws that benefit me. I'm going to set up tax schemes that benefit only me. I'm going to do everything I can to create, lobbies and interest groups, and pack political action committees that, just help me and my kind out. But increasingly, if you do that over and over and over and over again, what you get is a disjointed state that's weak, open to corruption, open to invasion, open to disgruntledness amongst the populace itself. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, the sovereign, what does he say? This formula shows us that the act of association comprises a mutual undertaking between the public and the individuals, and that each individual, in making a contract, as we may say, with himself, is bound in a double capacity. As a member of the sovereign, he is bound to the individuals, and as a member of the state, to the sovereign. But the maxim of civil right, that no one is bound by undertakings made to himself, does not apply in this case. For there's a great difference between incurring an obligation to yourself and incurring one to a whole of which you form a part. Attention must be further called to the fact that public deliberation, while competent to bind all the subjects to the sovereign, because of the two different capacities in which each of them may be regarded, cannot, for the opposite reason, bind the sovereign to itself, and that it is consequently against the nature of the body politic for the sovereign to impose on itself a law which it cannot infringe. Being able to regard itself in only one capacity, it is in the position of an individual who makes a contract with himself, and this makes it clear that there neither is nor can be any kind of fundamental law binding on the body of people, not even the social contract itself. This does not mean that the body politic cannot enter into undertakings with others, provided the contract is not infringed by them. For in relation to what is external to it, it becomes a simple being, an individual. But the body politic or the sovereign, drawing on its being wholly from the sanctity of the contract, can never bind itself, even to an outsider, to do anything derogatory of the original act. For instance, to alienate any part of itself or to submit to another sovereign. Violation of this act by which it exists would be self-annihilation, and that which is itself nothing can create nothing. As soon as this multitude is so united in one body, it is impossible to offend against one of the members without attacking the body, and still more to offend against the body without the members resenting it. Duty and interest therefore equally oblige the two contracting parties to give each other help, and the same men should seek to combine in their double capacity all the advantages dependent upon that capacity. Again, the sovereign, being formed wholly of the individuals who compose it, neither has nor can have any interest contrary to theirs, and consequently the sovereign power need give no guarantee to its subjects, because it is impossible for the body to wish to hurt all its members. We shall also see later on that it cannot hurt any in particular. The sovereign, merely by virtue of what it is always what it should be. This, however, is not the case with the relation of the subjects to the sovereign, which, despite the common interest, would have no security that they would fulfill their undertakings unless it found means to assure itself of their fidelity. In fact, each individual, as a man, may have a particular will contrary or dissimilar to the general will which he has as a citizen. His particular interest may speak to him quite differently from the common interest. His absolute and naturally independent existence may make him look upon what he owes to the common cause as a gratuitous contribution, the loss of which will do less harm to others than the payment of it is burdensome to itself. Regarding the moral person which constitutes the state as persona ficta, because not a man, he may wish to enjoy the rights of citizenship without being ready to fulfill the duties of a subject. The continuance of such an injustice could not but prove the undoing of the body politic. So he's saying that there will be times when your personal interest may seem to come into collision with that of the collective will. Your personal will may be different than the collective will. But as soon as there is a moment in which you feel like there's nothing in it specifically just for you, and you decide to pull out, well, then that means that anybody else can pull out, and then you really don't have a fucking body politic to begin with. In order then that the social compact may not be an empty formula, it tacitly includes the undertaking, which alone can give force to the rest, that whoever refuses to obey the general will shall be compelled to do so by the whole body. This means nothing less than that he will be forced to be free. He will be forced to be free. For this is the condition which, by giving each citizen to his country, secures him against all personal dependence. In this lies the key to the working of the political machine. This alone legitimizes civil undertakings, which, without it, would be absurd, tyrannical, and liable to the most frightful abuses. So, I mean, it's a lot to think about there. That's a lot to think about there. I mean, but at least you have the ability to look at it and to think about it. In other words, I mean, Rousseau is saying, look, and there are contemporary incarnations of Rousseau when it comes to deliberative democratic theorists, okay? People who, promote communicative ethics, like Habermas or John Rawls, or Salah Ben Habib, or, James Bowman, or Henry Richardson, or a whole host of thinkers, who are in the tradition, or, I mean, there are even feminists who are deliberative democratic theorists. Like Iris Young. Okay, it's like this, they're basically saying, look, it's not just about you and your private interests and what's just best for what you want to do in your personal life. It's about what's best for the entirety of the group. And when you're making decisions, you should use public reason, not private reason, in order to formulate laws and policies. Not just what's good for you, but what's good for the whole group. Now, if you got any questions, you can ask me. You don't, I'm about to sign off. I'm gonna take a quick break again and see if somebody wanna say something. If they don't, I'm out of here. I'm just trying to do my work to give you the information on what this shit is about. But tomorrow I'm gonna be back on the regular time, and I'm gonna talk about what feminists have to say about Rousseau. Because I mean, the social contract is one piece of writing from him. He has, like 3 quintessential, texts which all fit in together, okay? But yes, Rousseau is like, he's a heavy influence on Immanuel Kant. I'm pretty sure that, to some degree, he has an influence on Marx. Although Marx may not have read a lot of Rousseau, I guarantee you he did read him to some degree. But yeah, tomorrow is when I go over what feminists have to say about Rousseau. Because Rousseau has a problem with marketplace mentality. He think it leads to all kinds of dysfunctions. And I tend to agree. I agree. So neo-reactionary says, do you think the state, society, the arbiter of morality, or is mankind naturally moral and society the one that is corrupted? The idea of guiding people's freedom seems very Hobbesian of him. Well, ultimately what he's trying to say is this. What he's trying to say is, what Rousseau is trying to say is something, let me put this in individual terms and use deontology, which is Kant's moral philosophy, as a means by which to make this understandable to you. Okay? So, like, Kant believes, and I'm using Kant because it's an easy way for you to understand what public versus private reasoning is. Okay? Yes, BJ, MJJ, Rousseau's politics is the antithesis of neoliberal politics. It definitely is that. And the idea that, politics is a marketplace. Because one thing that, Rousseau is going to be critical of is women's insistence on entering the marketplace. Think about what women are doing. Oh, this family doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for me. Having to listen to you don't work for me. Well, what about the community? What about the fucking kids? What about the men that you are in association with? So just fuck them. It's all about your personal, private liberty. But then they act as if they're doing something just for the whole. They're just leaning into neoliberalism. That's going to be a big objection to what feminists are doing. They claim to be part of this like radical Marxist, political enterprise. They're not. And this is one of the principal, objections that, Rousseau is going to have with feminism. Like, hold on, wait a minute. All you're doing is actually, you're compounding a problem that was fucked up from the beginning. Now you're part of the fucking problem. But they won't admit it though. But I mean, some of them will. You'll see in this paper that I read tomorrow. Okay, but I got to give you the background so you'll understand the secondary literature. That's. I feel like I'm unprepared. You're unprepared to understand and comprehend the secondary material if I don't first read the primary material and go over it with you. But yeah. So Kant basically says, look, you're a rational human being. You can make up principles of action for yourself. Okay? Now, you can ask questions about the maxims you make. You can ask a technical question, you can ask a prudential question, and you can ask a moral question. Now, the technical question, basically, now before I say that, maxims have a form. It's my policy to commit action A in circumstance C in order to bring about end E, or a certain state of affairs, okay? So, you can ask questions about that. Technical, prudential, and moral questions. Technical questions basically are, well, can the action actually bring about the end you're desiring? Right? A prudential question basically is, okay, well, is it in my interest to act in these circumstances so as to bring about this specific end? Is it something that I want to do and motivated to do because it's part of my desires, right? And then you could ask moral questions. Is it the right thing to do based upon duty and based upon what's good, not just for myself, but for the kingdom of ends of which I'm a member? And the whole concept of a kingdom of ends in Kant's moral philosophy comes from Rousseau and his notion of the general will, which is what I just explained for you. So basically, Kant says, look, let's make up a policy, a maxim. It's my policy to steal the salt and pepper shakers from the cafeteria when I want some so I can have some back at my dormitory room. From the cafeteria where all the kids eat. But you can't just make up the maxim, you have to generalize the maxim. It's not only your policy, but it's everybody's policy. It's not just everybody's policy, it's everybody's policy all the time. Then you have to sit back and reflect on what would the social order be like if everyone always acted by the rational principle of action you've made up for yourself. And this is the moral question. Is it possible to even carry out the action if everyone else is doing the same thing? Yeah, you could take the salt and pepper shakers and bring them back to your dorm room, but if everyone always does this, sooner or later there wouldn't be any salt and pepper shakers left. There wouldn't be any. So it's a self-defeating policy. It's immoral, and you should not do it. Let's think of something more simple. And this is Kant, and then I'm going to use it to explain Rousseau. It's my policy to cheat on my wife when this woman got this big old fat ass at this conference I'm at. Okay? It's my policy to hit this big old fat ass at this conference because I want to bust a nut. But I'm married though. Okay? So then the question is, okay, not just you doing it, but everybody always does it. And then you got to imagine what the social order would be like if that was what everybody did in marriages. And of course, the obligation in a marriage is to be, monogamous and to be, in a situation where there's fidelity, right? Not infidelity, but fidelity. So if you can't rationalize everybody doing it and always doing it, would you want to be a member of a society in which that was the norm? If you don't want to be a member of that society, then, basically what you're thinking about is wrong. Because all you're operating on is private reasoning, what's best just for you. But it's really actually just an expression of what's in the Bible, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And do those things that you feel like other people would feel comfortable doing. Don't do that which you don't want others to pattern or model your their behavior after. You. Let me rephrase that. Don't do shit that you don't want other people to do. You got to think about the institutions too, and not just your own private interests. You got to think about the things, like consequences that extend beyond your personal satisfaction. But we lost that art. Like, it's impossible in this culture to think about anything. All motherfuckers doing is talking about how great they are. Like, listen to hip hop. It's just a bunch of niggas talking about I'm the shit. Look at the shit I got. And it makes me valuable because I got a lot of possessions and shit. And women are like, well, you know, I can do that too. Look at me, I got the bag. Just like Negroes used to say, look at my chain, look at my cars, look at my money, bitch. Now it's women saying the same thing. And the question is this really actually like the kind of value system that we want to operate under in perpetuity? Is like this, where are we going? Is this the culture that, I mean, you know, did we want to say that this is ours and this is a valuable culture? Like, I mean, it's cool to, you know, to try to, you know, do the best you can do and to, you know, make an honest buck and to, you know, try to add value to the community of which you belong. But it's another thing, you know, to try to get bread, to try to show I'm better than you. That's a whole different level of the game. Look at me, nigga, I'm fresh, you not. Question is, what's not just good for you right now? You know, all I see is a bunch of self-interested, neoliberal motherfuckers trying to get what they can get. And that's just, it's a problem. But that's just how I see politics right now in America. And nobody's paying attention really to the larger issues. And that's why I put those videos out there, like the technological mode of being and like this whole marketplace idea of politics is killing us. But all we talk about is the politics of fucking and the politics of recognition and identity politics. I'm just tired of it, man. Nobody's thinking about what's best for the collective. Nobody. Everybody's just thinking about what's good for them. And this is where we find ourselves. At some point, there's going to be a reckoning. Because we're exacting too much of a toll on the body politic, the environment. This is why you got all these sci-fi stories and shit where, you know, like the future looks like a fucking apocalypse. They already know it. Because we can't get out of the selfish mode of thinking, the egoistic, market-based mode of reasoning. We can't get out of it. We can't escape it. Not everything is about branding and shit. I mean, even YouTube like content, it's about branding and shit like that. Like, well, I gotta make the content to match the monetization, and that's bullshit. Now you can't even say what you want to say. You can't. There are things that are off limits because you're worried about the marketing and the market implications and shit like that. This is sickness, man. Then you got people who are using the threat of you being cut out of the market as a means by which to enforce their political will, which is immoral. But like Rousseau would be like, that's fucking immoral. It's horrendous. But anyway, man, I'm hungry, dude. Like it's 11:29, man. You know, I'm hungry, bro. I got to eat, man. I'm about to make me something to eat real fast. You know? But all I'm trying to do is give you information, bro. And I did this tonight because you know, I didn't want to, you know, make this sensational. I know people, you know, politics is boring to them. Especially if it's now couched in contemporary bipartisan politics in America, which is all smoke and mirrors to begin with. There's no way I'm going to pay attention to the various daily trivialities of what's going on in Washington. It would make my head like just hurt, even thinking about that bullshit. I'm not going to get caught in that minutia, bro. So, you know, neo-reactionary says, do you think it's even possible to fix this? Or do we just have to wait for the system to burn itself out? There are people who are trying to fix it. But of course, the corporations are going to do what, you know, benefits them. And the politicians are going to do what benefits them. Which, again, in and of itself is contradictory to the way things ought to be. Politically. Ian says, I got 2 previous questions. Would you please take a look? Were the main white slave trading countries devoid of philosophical understanding? No, they weren't. Because that's where, like, these people come from. These thinkers. But, I mean, like, to them, we weren't human beings, so fuck it. But their sins against us have implications back on themselves. It's always karma. It's always a price to pay. And the price might not be paid at the time you think it has to be paid. The collection for the cost might come 1,000 years later, but the cost will be paid. So he says also, so should we accept a sudden swing back to communist societal structures of forced public good? This is not about communism. See this? The public good doesn't have anything to do with communism. Necessarily. But here's the larger question is this. Is life merely nothing more if the only joys associated with life are the accumulation of material objects? Is that all it is? Is that all that it is? Is that all that it consists in? Chaos Rain, what's cracking?
Good evening, Green Gorilla.
Good evening, bro.
Let me take my earbud. My question with Rousseau's works. What is one thing that the so-called private school system is such afraid of holding this information teaches to students that's high school age? This information. What's the major concern with all this information? Besides from reading from these scholars, from Rousseau, from Hobbes, etc. That's my question.
I mean, you know, high school this might be, you know, like we had this conversation the other day. Like high schoolers might not be ready for this. But I mean, a person who's in college should be ready for it. I mean, you know, but you know, like, but the point is, people are already ready for this at a young age if it's practiced. Like all of this theoretical shit is unnecessary. Like the whole idea, like kids already know the truth in this anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're part of a collective and then people are off doing what's best only for themselves within the context of a collective, you're going to say, dog, you ain't playing team ball. You're going to already see is something foul in the midst about that. Just imagine you're on a basketball team and then you got one motherfucker, all he trying to do is jack up numbers so he can be recruited for, the pros or something like that in college. And all he does is gun and gun and gun so he looks good. But y'all lose damn near every game because he trying to push his stats up. Then you're going to say to him, dude, you're not even playing team ball. You're not even operating in a capacity such that you care about the collective more than you care about yourself. You're not a good team player. And people will say that and point it out.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, people understand these concepts and they are taught. But like we forget, like I guess when we get older, like all of a sudden all this shit just gets thrown out of the window. And it all becomes about me, my, and my personal. And that's cool. But I mean, like how far does that get you? Like, I mean, in the long run. That's why we don't have communities anymore. That's why everybody in America is so-called individual. Okay, all right. Then you got to aggregate it. You really don't have a body politic. You just got a mass of people living together with no connection to each other. Mm-hmm. No empathy for each other, no kindness, no consideration, no nothing. It's like, fuck you. Okay, well, fuck you too. Now, how's that going to work in the long run? So, but at the end of the day, I mean, to answer the question, like, so the brother asked a question about materialism and can we get past it? I've said before, man, some of the best things in life are free, but we can't even see that.
You're right.
Like you can have less and still have more of a quality of life. And just because you got a lot of shit don't mean that it's going to necessarily carry happiness along with it. Like you got a bunch of miserable rich motherfuckers out here, bro. You got a lot of famous people who are miserable and in depression.
Some people.
Yeah, I mean, but that's just to be expected. It's all about you. Like, if freedom is nothing but the ability for you to say fuck you, like we are in the state of nature, then we still in the state of nature. The whole point of the contract is to give up a portion of the rights that you have over to the state. Now, for Rousseau, the state is really nothing more than the collective will of the citizens. Not the state in terms of a body. Now, for Hobbes, it can be one individual man. Okay? Who's charismatic enough to keep the peace. For John Locke, it's got to, I think, be a set of institutions that operate by principles that preserve people's ability to maintain their property. And I don't think any of these men have nasty and ulterior motives, to be perfectly honest. I really don't. They just have different ideas about the origin and the nature of politics. Now, the brother asked the question about politics, what political power is. I just so happen to think that the political power is exactly what John Locke says it is. And I'll go over it. I'll show you what Locke says about. Let me get rid of this little part right here, bro. I believe this wholeheartedly, man. I swear to God, I believe it, man. Locke, PDF, Second Treatise. Early Gutenberg. I believe this wholeheartedly, bro. I swear to God, I do. Political power. Let me make it bigger. Make it. Okay. There it is. You see it now? It's bigger.
Yeah.
I really believe this. Political power, I take to be a right of making laws with penalties of death. And consequently, all less penalties for the regulating and preserving of property and of employing the force of the community in the execution of such laws and in the defense of the Commonwealth from injury, and all this only for the public good. Even Locke understands that this should be done for the public good. And I say that black folks don't have political power, especially black men, because we have no power to make laws with penalties that result in death. And less penalties for, less serious offenses or whatever the case may be. We don't have political power. And fuck voting and all that shit. That's butter, dude. This is the guns right here. I said this before, man. I've said it on the show, but I haven't put it in these terms. The reason why there's no accountability of anybody to us, because they don't have to be. If you can't have any sanctions, and you remember me saying this, Ian, why would any be? There is no accountability if there are no sanctions. There's zero. So, the reality is your woman has more access to political power than you do, precisely because she will utilize the power of the state. And they will listen to her. They will listen to her.
That's just like
not
Susan
you.
Rice when Snoop Dogg said what he said. Susan Rice, she was part of the government. She said she threatened to use the government on his ass and shit. On
and
some
he cowered
feminist type of shit.
Bruh. Political power, you can have this power by proxy or you can have it directly. White men have direct access to this power. Because they're the one to make the laws. They're the one that sits in the majority of the judgeships. Do they not? If the Nation of Islam had the power to murder motherfuckers for breaking its rules, they'd be the best thing going in the black community. And to legitimately be able to do so.
They was breaking some necks now.
Man, breaking a few necks and killing a few motherfuckers, like extrajudicially is one thing altogether different from being able to do it with the power in the open and to put it in a paper. He was executed because he did X, Y, and Z. He broke the rules. We fucked him up. We executed him. Or we levied a tax on him. He had to pay restitution. And it's a matter of public record.
Yeah.
That's how you know you don't have any political power. You don't have it. Now you might have economic power, private power economically. You meaning you can spend money to make money, but that still doesn't mean you have political power. You might have power. Corporations have political power to the extent to which, these corporations are beholden. The state is beholden to them, in order to get its business done, but they don't have direct political power. They have proxy power, which is a form of power too, though. But in its most, its rawest essence, that's political power right there. And your black ass ain't got it. Sorry, not in this country. Now elsewhere, other men, like in other countries, they have it. Yeah. Whether they're mimicking or imitating the Western judicial system or not, we don't have it. We ain't got it. Going to vote, man, every year and shit like that, man, and then arguing about who we should vote for and, my party is X, Y, and Z, and man, fuck all that. The power is in being able to punish. and to be able to make laws that determine what the severity of the punishment is. That's political power. Now, according to Rousseau, everybody should be able to participate in the decision-making process. So it's just not one group of people ruling over others like by force. You understand? Like a shepherd who's basically fattening up his sheep so he can devour them. Everybody should have a say.
So does the governmental system, is that well, that's why I said about the communists, because I'm not clear, about the connections between communism and this philosophical treaties, but does the governmental system, is it required to have a certain governmental system for this logic to work, to be put in practical use?
I mean, this is an ideal, bro. This is a it's an ideal. Now it's not communism. There's nothing in here that says all people's properties need to be held in common. Like the state owns all the property. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he probably, now he does believe that property is a convention. Property is part of an agreement. Now, Locke thinks differently, but Hobbes thinks the same. Like property is a convention. Mm-hmm. If it were the case, the property, especially the way Western people think about it, was the prevailing, practice in the entirety of the world, then why was it different? Like, why did the Native Americans not have it the way we have it? Mm-hmm. Or why, like people who live more simplistically, why didn't they have it? Why didn't the Africans have it? Maybe this people's system is fucked up, and not the older systems, which were so-called backwards. Maybe their systems are fucked up. Like, you got to think. There are people who are Western philosophers who are warning Western culture and the people in it, you're fucking up. Like Heidegger is one of those persons. Like, look, you're fucking up. You're on a trajectory that's going to lead to our destruction. We can't get outside of the technological mode of being. And look what we're doing. We're fucking up the environment. We're fucking up the ocean. You got so much plastic in the ocean. This shit ain't biodegradable, bro. You fucking up the organisms on Earth. Like, this is why, like, science fiction is necessary. You saw the movie Prometheus, right? Mm-hmm. And then you had the architects, the engineers who came and they created life on the planet or whatever. We so preoccupied with creating artificial intelligence and shit like that. We fucking up the biosphere.
Just the other day they talking about a bill for the what they call it, the globe and some shit. The climate bill. Remember that?
Man, the mode of our actions and interactions with the environment and with each other are fucking destroying the planet. And it doesn't have to be this way. It never had to be this way. This is the result of a mode of thinking that has emanated from Western culture, that Western philosophers have said, pump the brakes on this shit. Now, I don't look, and then he says that's where I disagree with Rousseau. He thinks the property is a violation of state of nature in his beginning. He does think that to a certain degree. And look, I don't have a problem with Marxism per se. I don't have a problem with, capitalism to a certain extent. But, anything taken to its extreme becomes problematic. Like, I mean, we get caught in ideologies and fail to take a step back and say, hey, look, one way and mode of thinking and just going through life with blinders on with one mode of thought about everything is not going to give us the kind of results that we want.
what was the philosophical bent of the Western world, both communist and capitalist, that got them down the wrong path in the first place?
Well, you know, like some people say it was their epistemology that got them into this place. That's why I read the book Urugu to you. I only read the first chapter, okay?
Right.
You know, and you know, the whole thing is wanting to control everything, wanting to have power over everything, wanting to have knowledge of and about everything, wanting to be able to manipulate the environment and to treat it like an object instead of existing in harmony with it. Considering oneself to be superlative above and beyond flora and fauna, which sustains you. Like people have a problem with, you know, spirituality because they think it's some sort of, you know, like like a Hank leaving your body or some shit like that. I don't perceive it like that. I mean, the whole point is spirituality is understanding that, you know, there's more to your, you know, to who you are. There are connections and interconnections between us and the things that we're surrounded by. We're part of the biosphere. We exist within it. And we have an interplay with it. And we're not above and beyond it. But I mean, even their religion says that we're above and beyond it. Starting with the whole notion of Adam. Like he has dominion. Everything is his. He gets to name it. I mean, not every religious system starts off like that.
Well, spirituality is it says all of that, but what they say is that, you know, we have the super consciousness, which allows us to determine the connections and how the connections are made, and the groupings of these connections, which allows us to dominate the environment.
Bro, the average Western citizen is not even in communion with the environment anymore, bro. I mean, you got to think about this shit, bro. Like when you eat, you don't even kill what you eat, bro. You are disconnected from the process of birth, life, and death, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, in order for you to eat, some shit gotta die, man. Whether it's plant life or fucking animal life. Now, we pray over our food, but we don't kill it. When the last time you stepped outside of a fucking house somewhere and went, like, into the woods or some shit? Pitched the tent and went fishing or some shit like that? I'm just saying. We are so westernized, bruh. Like, we can't even, like, be, like, where my phone at? You get in your motherfucking car and leave your phone in the house.
That's trouble. That's problems.
You might be 30 miles away. You're going to be like, oh, no, I got to go 30 miles back. Get that phone before I'm out in the streets without it all night. Right or wrong.
You're right.
And you grew up in an era when it wasn't no cell phone.
Well, no phone. I'm still trying to figure out how we used to communicate and how I used to date, how I used to do all that shit with no phones, man. Because we wasn't home all the time to even be on the phone.
You act like people didn't go from state to state and from city to city before they had a navigation system and the GPS in their car.
Shit. That's amazing.
I'm just saying now, you are part of the environment. But we have removed ourselves so far from having to interact with it, we don't even know that we're part of the environment anymore. And we're obsessed with the pettiest shit in the world. We create all these contrivances and trivialities amongst each other. These philosophers saw that shit. They saw it. Now, you might agree or disagree with some of the things that they say, but like the reality is, I mean, they're saying, look, when human beings exist, apart from all of the trivialities associated with living in these so-called megaplexes, these cities and these states, their desires are very simple. It doesn't take much to satisfy a person.
Mhm.
And the things that satisfy them typically are better for them. Now, what satisfies the average American citizen other than a bunch of stupid shit?
Yeah.
You don't just want shoes, you want motherfucking Jumpmans. You don't want just shirts, you want shirts with the horse on the motherfucker. Cause you gotta be fly. You gotta be the flyest nigga in here. And what makes you fly is the material bullshit that they basically sell you and market to you everywhere.
Mhm.
You can't just have a phone. You can't have a flip phone no more. You can't have an Obama phone. You gotta have a brand new iPhone. And you can't have the old model. You got to have a brand new one.
Yeah. So basically, the disconnection, by default, will order a negative or a bad politics. Basically, politics cannot be fixed until we fix the connection, the loss of connection.
What I'm saying is, I think in this situation, man's gonna have to fall before. We are fucking the environment up, bro. We are destroying it, bro. Like, I mean, you see so many movies and sci-fi movies about this, bro. But we won't stop until we standing in our own shit.
Well, the Democrats are smart. They're saying, we got to get back to the environment and this and that. So they give lip service to getting back to connection, but never actually do.
Bro, just think about this, man. Technology is great to a certain extent. But that's why Heidegger says you got to be able to pull back from it in order to explore what makes human life valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what makes a human life valuable? Not technology in and of itself. We are organic beings.
Mm-hmm.
What makes people happy are relationships that are healthy.
But that's the thing. Our relationships are so fucked up. So we can't see the forest for the trees, because if our relationships ain't even good, we definitely can't see nothing else outside of that. If we can't even value simple relationships, we definitely can't figure nothing else out after that. So that's why this relationship piece and this manosphere is so important, because if we can at least get men and women to appreciate one another, we can actually might be able to see what some of the problems are for real.
But bro, it ain't just about male-female relationships. It's about human relationships. Even male among male relationships.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that's obvious to me by reading the philosophical literature is that men had an institutional world apart from women.
Mm-hmm.
They had institutional schemes that they set up and developed and networked and worked with one another in apart from women.
Mm-hmm.
One thing black folks don't do is develop political power outside of the context of the parties that are set up and established in American culture. We have no idea to organize above and beyond anything than what we see here already being offered to us. We don't even have a civic or public life, for real. Apart from, I want to be a politician, I want to be seen, I'm going to be, which basically it's like I'm a used car salesman or some shit. I'm not going into it because, the people really actually put me there. I really don't even want to be here, but they feel like I'm the best qualified for the job or whatever, and I'm representing them. Motherfuckers do this as a career and shit in order to gain recognition and esteem. That ain't what politics about. It should be about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, it's about parental relationships. You can even see, like, these people, man, they really did have a patriarchal culture. For right or wrong, for better or worse, they had one. We don't have anything that is remotely similar to that shit. They created nations and shit like that. Not to saying no black men elsewhere in the world have not, because they have. But we don't even learn from those men. We don't even look at or go back and see what the fuck they did. Nothing at all. We don't form alliances with those dudes. Nothing. But we think because we live in America, we because we've been here, we inherit what? We connected to this. Okay, connected to what in this? You built it, but you don't have nothing, that basically shows you a deed for your ownership of having built the motherfucker. Where your quit claim deed at? For all the effort and energy your folks done put into this motherfucker. Where is that? And it ain't just freedom from, not being able to be, restricted. Like, you can make a whole bunch of choices. You can go to the mall and make a bunch of choices to buy some shit. Right? Mm-hmm. But does that really actually add up to freedom, man? Being a customer and shit. Everywhere you go, you're a customer. You free. You free to buy some shit. This is how we perceive freedom today. Freedom is you being able to buy as much shit as your heart desires.
Yeah.
I'm just done with this shit, bro. Like, I don't even know how much more I can even talk about it without getting sick. Because ask anybody what they think freedom is. Now, of course, having resources is going to, be a condition for some sort of well-being and happiness in your life. You can't, like, if you're destitute and you have nothing, that's not going to be, you're not going to be free. But, like, the idea that, okay, my freedom is contingent upon me being able to go buy whatever I want, then I'll feel free. That's just a lie. Mm-hmm. It's not true. I'm here to get the bag. I got to get the bag first. I got to secure, like, all this, man, I don't know. This is fuckery is what it is.
So listen, so to some degree, and I would say that's a feminist, that's not a feminist, but that's a female mindset of what.
No, it's not, bro. It's not a female mindset.
Of what? A feminine mindset of what freedom is consumerism.
But men started this shit, bro.
But and so that's where I'm going. So does that mean that white folks who were involved in slavery were they actually patriarchs when they were so involved in this consumerism ideology? You know what I'm saying? And mindset. Were they really patriarchal, pure patriarchs when they were when they were about consuming so much?
Look, let me just say this, okay? So, and I'm gonna try to put it in terms to where it'll make sense to you, and I'm looking to find the words, man. So, I'm looking for the right words. Just give me 1 second, man, while I think this through, bro. Because it's not difficult, but it is complex enough to where it's going to require me to think about how I want to articulate this. Okay, mm-hmm. So Rousseau is basically going to say, look, before you, like, men are in their most simplistic kind of state, right? Like in the state of nature. They have a love for themselves, right? And he calls it something like this, amour de soi or de soi, okay? Human beings, like this idea of self-preservation, everybody has it, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't basically evoke this crazy competition amongst people like we have in the culture that we live in today. Mm-hmm. Right? So then the question is, what is the cause or the thing that provokes these, ideas of like competition amongst individuals within the context of the culture in which we live? It's one thing to have, like a love for yourself. And it's another thing to, be in competition with others over attention and like trying to put yourself in a hierarchy amongst other persons, right? So, so according to Rousseau, like in your natural state, you don't care if other people are better off, because nobody's that much better off than you are. Like, and then what are you going to determine how somebody is better off than you? Like, I mean, what, his fur look better than yours? Like, he got a polo on it. Like, a motherfucker living in 500 BC. Like, does he have like a polo on his shirt or some shit? Like, but they did have different kinds of fabrics and colors to denote who's a noble, who's not, or whatever. But the disparity in material objects wasn't as great as the disparity that some people have today. You get what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't inequality in the ancient world, because there was.
Yeah.
But not as pronounced as it is today. Now, maybe in the larger, and especially in the larger cultures, like Egypt, where, Pharaoh got all kind of gold and all this shit. Like, it's too much, too opulent. Or even in Greece or Rome. But like people who like have basic cultures, like, where there's not too much radical class stratification, I'm chilling. Like, I got all I can ask for. Like, the sun is shining, I got water, I got fucking food, like, I'm good. I got my kids here, we chilling. You understand what I'm saying? Like, everything is good. Life is good.
Yeah. Well, someone misunderstood me when I was promoting and I was doing reparations. I was on the radio. Someone misunderstood me because I tried to tell them that the modern day disparities between the rich and the poor are greater now than even during the time of slavery, where during the time of slavery, okay, you could be a slave 1 minute, but the next minute, if they took the chains off, you could build a house just the same as that white man. You know what I'm saying? But in today's time, it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? You just can't amass the same wealth within the same time period, and with the same ease. During now. So now the disparities are harder to correct than they were back then. So people, so they have us focusing. And so my thing was, they have us focusing so much on the trauma from the past. You don't understand the trauma that we're living in now. We're in the place of almost no return, where it's not even just about being black. We're at a point where human beings can be completely destroyed based on these disparities.
So here's the deal, man. Like, and Negroes, white people are part of the problem too. They're the ones that created the problem. Like, I mean, human beings are so worried about how they look to other people and shit like that, and like what like keeping up with the Joneses. It's like keeping up with the herd. Like, the existentialists will come along and like mirror some of these, talking points. Like they'll mirror like what Rousseau says about like how like the individual started off like in the state of nature, like having a love for himself, being content with what he has. Okay, that motherfucker got a family, I got one too. Great, good, la la woo woo. We all good. Like, I'm a warrior, he's a warrior. Like the baker's doing what he does. I mean, like, everybody's content to some degree. But when you become a member of a society like this one, like, people aren't just worried about having what they need. Like, people want to look like a certain way to other people and shit. Like, it's like the mask people want to put on. So, your interest, your love for self, now it turns into something different. Like, it turns into a different kind of interest. And like I think what Rousseau is gonna call it is amor propre. I think is what he calls it. Like, amor propre.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a different kind of sentiment. And you only see it in civil society. You only see it in cultures like this. Like people, have natural pity and empathy for each other. But this is some different shit. It's like a form of social consciousness. A kind of vanity to demonstrate I'm better than you, nigga.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it in rap all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's part of it, but it is part of Western culture in that, you can't just have what you need. You got to be fresher than the next motherfucker.
Yeah.
Your car gotta have something better in it, a new gadget, some rims, like some embroidery or something. You gotta have something extra special to make you more esteemed over some bullshit, some consumer good or something like that. Yeah, but you know how it goes. You know how this is.
Yeah.
But the point is, out of that sentiment develops a whole bunch of other dysfunctions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And distorted social relationships.
And that goes into distorted laws and restrictions. Like I said, that doesn't allow people now the control and the competition goes, is built into the laws where they restrict certain people through laws from being able just to move and have their freedom and live their life even in the most simplistic ways.
All I'm saying is we cut off from nature right now. Dude, you can go for miles and miles. You can see trees and shit here and there. You see greenery here and there, But it's like lights, pavement, roads, and shit like everywhere you go. We've terraformed like the United States. So I'm not saying it's altogether a bad thing, but it's like at least white folks got them summer homes and shit, and they go camping and hunting and shit. They go out and they got their little camouflages. They go out and kill their deer and shit like that. And not to say some black folks don't do that. A lot of black folks do it. But we're cut off from nature, bruh. It's a lot of city slickers. If it was a tragedy that popped off right now, man, them niggas wouldn't know how to make potable water, dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just keeping it 100, bruh.
Mm-hmm.
Shit that you learn, like how to take iodine tablets and put them in water so you can drink it, make it drinkable and shit like that. We wouldn't even know how to do it, dog. Like if the electricity was cut off for 7 to 8 days, what we gonna do, bruh? We don't know how to make lard. You know what I'm saying? We like to preserve food and shit like that. Like basic shit that people that lived before us knew how to do. We don't even know how to do it anymore.
Yeah, and that's dangerous. That's why I said the time we're in now is more dangerous than it was ever before.
And we think this thing can't come crashing down. You underdig me? I'm just saying, look, I don't want to talk all night, man. I'm already 2 hours and 30 minutes into this, man. And look, I did it in an off time so that, I basically wanted people who actually wanted to hear this material to hear it. I didn't want to come in and try to do it during the regular time I do a show. But, bro.
I was waiting all night. I'm like, yo, when this nigga gonna...
Yeah, man. But yeah, man, sometimes, man, I feel like, okay, because I did 2 videos already and I didn't want to just keep hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting, putting more and more videos out, And but this one, it's just information. I'm trying to, give you information that you should have got either in high school or when you went to, college. Mm-hmm. But you wasn't paying attention because you was either fucking around.
No, this Harvard, this Harvard level type shit, man.
This ain't Harvard nothing, bro. That's the thing. Look. Rousseau is Rousseau at a community college and at Harvard, dog. The words don't change. Rousseau is Rousseau, dog. You feel me?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying? Thomas Hobbes is Thomas Hobbes at Harvard and at the community college.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same words from the same man. If you can fucking read, it's the same shit. The only thing that comes from Harvard is prestige. And yeah, those kids are a little bit more, like they have a better background because they have access to cultural capital. Mm-hmm. A lot of those kids do. You know what I'm saying? Because their parents made sure that they were educated and had tutors and all of this. And, but like the reality is, so what? The shit that they learn, you can learn. Either on your own or at wherever school you're at. You just got to be committed to doing the work. But a lot of kids that go to, like state-funded schools, man, they got to work and go to school. Unlike the kids at Harvard, they just got to study and shit. They ain't got to worry about where their food coming from, their money coming from, They good. They ain't got to worry about all that. So, I mean, there's a different set of, needs and responsibilities that some kids have that some don't, And that's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. When I was in college, man, dude, I was a lifeguard, a DJ, and I worked at a place called the Fudgery. I worked at a fucking home for abused and battered children and shit, man. Dude, I did all kind of shit. But I still did my studies, though. And then I played hard as hell, too, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I made sure that, like, you work hard, you play hard. But I was the party, though. I mean, like, I was the party because I was the DJ. So, I'm not saying I was the only DJ, but I would, like, in my tenure, I was throwing parties like, I was throwing big time parties, bro. Thousands of people at the party. You feel me? Like, I ain't talking about small parties like it's a couple of hundred people and shit. No. Talking about big party, bro. Big party. And when you throw a house party, it's motherfuckers, man, I ain't never seen shit like this, man. If you felt like your floor about to collapse. Sort of shit. Damn, there's a lot of motherfuckers in here. But I mean, that was back then. But you work hard, you play hard. You play hard, you work hard. But shit, even while I was playing, I was working. I was playing records, working.
You're making that money, man, Green Gorilla. You know what I'm saying? No joke.
Man, look, dude, I don't DJ anymore, but I still like music, so I still make it. I make music.
Why you don't do that? Why you don't do your intros no more, man?
I got a beat channel. Don't nobody even watch the motherfucker. Ain't nobody even subscribe to it.
You got a beat channel?
What
I didn't know this. It still exists?
Man, look, okay, so I'm about to put the beat channel up tomorrow on my regular time when I come in. How about that? And I'm gonna play one of my beats and shit before the show start, and then try to drive some traffic to the beat channel.
Okay, cool.
Because I still I make music. Like tonight, I'll probably end up fucking around with Fruity Loops, fucking around, moving and arranging samples around, and fucking with MIDI data, and laying some parts down to something. Because I like it. It's something I like to do. And I'll never stop liking, doing it. I'll never stop it.
Yeah. Well, my thing with the beats, Green Gorilla, because I was always trying to find different tunes for intro to the Chaos Rank channel. And the library is kind of cool, but it's not something that really suits this chaos in a way. So,
Bruh, let me tell you, man. You want me to make you a beat, man? Tell me what the shit that you hearing in, like. Give me 3 or 4 examples of what you think your music should sound like.
Okay.
In terms of like a feeling or a vibration, like what instruments or whatever. And I ain't gonna remake that, but I'm gonna be like, okay, this is what he on. This is what he feel. Okay, I'll make you a beat, and then you got your chaos music.
Okay, cool. I'll put thought to it.
But I'll put the beat channel up tomorrow. I ain't gonna put it up tonight. I'll put it up tomorrow. I'll let everybody know where it is. And every day that I do a show, I have another beat until I run out of them. How about that?
That's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah.
And some of them gonna be better than the others. That's just how this shit goes. Some of them gonna be some duds. Some of them I'm gonna think, oh, this is hot, and it ain't gonna be as hot as I think it is. But that's the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow.
Check.
I'll hit you with that tomorrow.
Check.
For sure. So anyway, man, I get at y'all tomorrow, man. All I tried to do was to give you information about Rousseau. And the difference is that, especially between Rousseau and Locke, is that Rousseau believes that property is something that is corruptive of social relations, whereas, Locke believes that property is something that is deeply connected with human nature, and that it exists in a pre-social state. Namely, that men, and I think both of them are right in a certain way, because it is true that like human beings like to get busy with shit, like me making beats. People like to, or like making furniture. Some people do that for a hobby. Or like some women like to make jewelry. They'll sit there and fucking like go collect seashells and shit, and they'll put together like jewelry. And like human beings are creatives.
Yeah,
it's what we do.
It's a duality. Basically when you comparing the two, it's like a duality. Because some people would say, okay, you become so ADHD with that thing, it enslaves you. But other people would say, oh, that actually is freedom. Some people would say that is freedom, and then some people will say that's slavery. You know what I'm saying? But it all depends on the person, on how they view it. Some people don't mind spending 80 hours a week doing something, and some people would say 80 hours a week doing anything is enslavement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, like if you love doing it, like like say for example, I don't know, like right now, it's a bad example, but I'm gonna use the example anyway. Like Future is always in the studio. I'm pretty sure that motherfucker's in the studio more than 80 hours a week. Is he a slave? Or like Lil Wayne back in his days when he was like making records and doing freestyles and doing like mixtapes all the time. Like, was he a slave? Or like, say for example, another, like Einstein, just working on a formula, trying to work out a theory, and doing so because he like is what he's drawn to. I mean, is he a slave? Like, I mean, you can be compulsive to the point where like, come on, Alva, it's time to put it down. Or come on, Einstein, it's time for you to eat now. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, if you have a passion for what it is that you're doing, I mean, it's one thing to have to go work a drudge, like a job that's filled with drudgery, and you lament it every time you go to work, as opposed to something that you really enjoy doing, where time just seems to be suspended. Like if you love what you're doing, you won't even realize how much time elapsed before it's time for you to stop doing it. You could be engaged in an activity and lose sight of time, and it's 4 a.m, and you was just like, damn, I started this shit like 11 o'clock. It's fucking 4 a.m. Like, where did the time go? That's when you know you actually you focused and you doing something. As opposed to you constantly looking at the clock, like, damn, here I am. Like, that's being a slave for real to me. Being a slave to time. But anyway, man, look, I'll get into a million different conversations all night long, bro. But I'll be back tomorrow at the regular time, man, at 5:15. And I'm gonna talk about Rousseau again, but I'm gonna talk about a feminist and their reaction to some of the things that Rousseau says. Because I give you the primary literature, and then then we can look at the secondary literature and see what they have to say. But at least you got the general thrust of what Rousseau is all about. Yeah. At least you got, but you ain't read all this shit. You need to read way more than what I read aloud. But I mean, but you get it. Yeah, you do, man. You got like, it ain't like you could just read little pieces, like one little part of a text and then you got the whole thing down pat. No, bro. You know, I could go deeper and deeper into it, but like that, you know, y'all will be like, man, I'm tired of that. I want to go look at the stuff about these bitches. That's gonna be the first thing, because black men love to argue about women, boy. In this space, particularly, love it.
Yeah. You're right about that. You know what I mean? That it becomes almost a crutch. You know, I was on a paddle with chaos the other night, and you know what I'm saying, and it, it's like sometimes if you get away from the whole narrative that they feel that you should be on, you know what I'm saying, they upset.
That's why, you know, I believe many men are pre-Oedipal, dog. Like it's like they haven't like moved past the mother's teat. You know what I'm saying? It's like they still have mother worship and, you know, like deeply, you know, ingrained within their soul. And I don't, you know, look, I don't have a problem. You know, like, you know, you gotta honor your mother, but like every woman ain't your mama.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like that. You got one mama, bruh. One. And at some point, you got to do a Paul Atreides on her ass. Like, no, this is where we going. Even with your own mama. Like, no, this ain't what we doing, ma. Or like, no, ma, I ain't doing that. And you can't tell a mother that nowadays they going to start crying and shit. You told me no. What the fuck? Like a man is supposed to tell his own father no at a certain point. But we don't even have a father to tell no. Which is fucked up. Because at some point, you even see in the literature they got here, like, your father does not hold you under obligations forever. Now I'm going to show him honor and respect, but like, damn, like I ain't got to like be under his thumb forever. Like when I get grown and I start getting my own life and start my own family and my own existence, I have no more fealty to you, dude. Like we cool.
You need to go over Confucius at some point. He talks about the relationship, you know, to some degree of you know, father and son or whatever. I don't know how much he goes into it, but yeah.
But we don't even have father and son relationships.
Yeah.
We got OG relationships and shit like that. Like that's the OG. Where your daddy at, man? then they call her, oh, you're just old, you're a boomer or some shit like that. Like, dude. You just say your daddy, your daddy ain't around, nigga. Just say that shit. You just mad your daddy wasn't there.
Yeah.
He was strung out on dope or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Or your mom was a bust down or something, you know. She was the result. Fuck it. niggas don't like to hear that shit.
Yeah.
Don't talk about my mama.
Man, you know, Negroes don't know what to do. You know, I swear to God, bro. Like they're human beings, man. But you know, I can tell, man. Like, you know, a guy who had a dad who was around and the guy who didn't. You can tell, bro. You can really tell, man.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell.
You can tell, bro. You know, and no disrespect to the guys who didn't. A lot of them, I'm not saying they're not men, but it's just the disposition, bro. Like, men can tell you a lot of shit. Grown-ass men, man, have a way of being able to help you be masterful and not to just, you know, go out here on dummy dumbs. But, you know, this new generation of guys, man, you know, they you know, I understand their position, but like just, you know, the spitefulness, even on both sides, like women have this spitefulness, men like this shit didn't exist when I was coming up, bro.
Yeah.
It wasn't there.
Yeah.
All this gender war shit wasn't there, bro. I swear it wasn't, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
All this social justice wokeism shit, it wasn't there, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this thing for me came gradually. You know what I'm saying? I just ain't just wake up and was just mad. It was just a gradual process. Okay, this shit ain't is kind of fucked up. Some shit is going on. So I really didn't have a switch, you know what I'm saying? But some niggas, you know, they just switched, you know, they went from one day being this way, the next just angry and hateful and shit. Like I'm
But you would
going
be
big time.
well, like there's some shit that'll make you angry, like your wife divorcing you and then taking the kids and leaving you with fucking nothing. Now you living in a studio apartment and shit.
That happened, shit. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, I'm just saying that, like, that's the sort of shit that'll make you have some fucking rage. Like, wait a minute, this bitch get the house, she got the kids, the cars, the dogs, and I'm living in a fucking studio apartment?
Yeah.
This ain't righteous. This is not fucking equitable. Or, you know, your fucking lady slapping and punching you and then all of a sudden got you in the legal system like you're an abuser, but this bitch is the one that's the abuser.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Or, you know, like, just the whole social disposition is just filled with sicko bitches right now, like weirdos and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're on the cutting edge of justice.
Yeah.
All over who's fucking who. Like, this is, man, bro, like, look, I'm done with tonight, bro.
But Green Gorilla, but the thing is, what I'm saying too, a lot of these dudes haven't experienced that. And I'm like, my thing is, how you ain't, listen, I've been beat up. You more pro-black. I've been beat up unconscious by the police and shit. You know what I'm saying? I done had all that shit with my wife and kids. And these niggas ain't even went, they've been sheltered their whole life. And they get into the manosphere and they angrier than me. I don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy it.
Bro, I done been to prison. I was saying fuck the police when I was a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you know, it just is what it is. And it wasn't, you know, but I did grow up in that era, though, where some black consciousness was still there. You know what I'm saying? Like, but today, bro, man.
Like I said, some of these niggas
There is like the woke mob has taken the place of race politics. There is no race politics anymore because it's all about gay politics mixed with racial politics, mixed with, you know, who you fucking politics. It's like it's all effeminate, neoliberal fucking weirdo shit. Like bro. I swear to God, bro. Like I don't even know how to take it anymore, man. Like you know, it's like, wait a minute. It's one thing for us to start having a conversation about race. It's another thing for me to see somebody who apparently is a male dressing up like a fucking female and not telling me you better act like I'm a woman now or else I'm gonna get you in trouble, man. And if I don't agree with you, you are just you're phobic and you don't hate us. You hate us and you want us to die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, motherfucker, I'm just trying to get a job and survive, man, and be able to see my kids and stay out of fucking jail. You fucking weirdo.
For real.
Yeah, man. And it's making it hard for a nigga nowadays.
Like, hard. Stop it, bro. Like, you got white men who now want to be women and shit, or women who want to be men, and that's supposed to substitute for all the historical injustices that have taken place in the fucking U.S. So now we don't have to have any conversation about any of that shit. We just got to worry about representation and inclusion of those marginalized groups within marginalized groups. And of course, the politics of fucking is more important than anything else now.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, man, dude, I'm just done with this shit, bro. Like, I you know, it makes my fucking, you know. But it makes my heart, man. It makes my heart beat slower.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's like listening to all of this crazy shit and seeing all of it. It drains my energy, bro. Because it's stupid. And half of these people, man, got all these sexual issues because of the chemical, the fucked up chemicals being pumped into the environment.
Yeah, man. Even Tony, I think his name's Tony something, the guy that's talking about accessing all that stuff, trying to make people, you know, yeah.
We get part of the problem with sexual confusion and identity is related to environmental and chemical production and technological advancement in the Western world. And nobody wants to pay. if the feminists had to look at that shit in women and gender studies, if biology and the study of hormones and the endocrine system was a part of what they were doing, which it's not, but if it was, then they'd be saying a whole different set of things than what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's not comprehensive enough.
I mean, think about it. You talking about gender, but you don't have no consideration related to biology at all. Nothing about hormones, nothing.
Nothing. That's
just a whole bunch of shit from literature, like reading a whole bunch of philosophy and shit.
You know, fiction. It's fiction. Fiction writers and shit mostly and shit.
Man, I'm done with it, bro. Like, man, I'm done with this shit. I've been on here for 3 hours, dude. Like, I don't know why my show's getting longer and longer. And the amount of motherfuckers watching them getting smaller and smaller and shit, bro. Hey, but the reality is, man, like, look. The reality is, hey, man, this is where we are, bro. You know, politics of wokeism, man. And the corporations like it because they don't have to do shit, but act like they on top of the game, and you know they running shit. You know, like YouTube is on the same shit, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Because they tell you what you can say and not say, and this meets our community guidelines, and we don't like that. And
the guidelines not even clear either.
Man, it's all bullshit. All it is a way for them to determine who gets money and who doesn't.
Facts. Yeah.
Who can eat off the platform and who can't. Mm-hmm. And it's all based on like so-called advertisers determining, I don't want my branding to be associated with this. Who gives a fuck, bro? Like, it's a YouTube video. You ain't fucking sponsoring no content, helping a nigga sit back and getting fun so I can have better quality videos. The motherfuckers are leeches, bro.
You're right.
They using your viewership in order to sell some shit.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't like, I don't want to be associated. Motherfucker, you ain't associated with it because you ain't did shit to help none of us develop our content. Nothing.
Facts.
But then you want to determine who's, I don't want my video to play next to what he's saying. Man, fuck you. Because I don't want my public relations to look like X, Y, and Z while I have people work for me for less than fucking standard wages.
Mm-hmm.
And no insurance either. Man, fuck these corporations, bro.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you know, but they want to make sure that they control the content of your speech and shit. Not the corporations are doing this. And then you got the woke mob working hand in hand with fucking, this is how you know this shit is anti-revolutionary. And it's all about tokenism and some bullshit. They better, the company, and they got diversity and inclusion departments and fucking offices and shit like that. Man, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Some bullshit, bro.
They the new civil rights leaders and shit in the company.
Man, come on, man. A corporation with a diversity and inclusion department, so you put a few token motherfuckers identity groups in there.
BLM came out of them damn corporations and shit.
This is how you know we fucked in the game. I swear to God, bro. Yeah. But they gonna tell you, you know, like they're on the edge of justice. Like they're like, I mean, you see it everywhere, dude. Like I play a video game, man. It's called Apex, man. Apex Legends, right? Yeah. You ever play that game, man?
Mm-mm.
It's a dope ass game, but it's just all they got to do is say, look, we believe in freedom and some shit. And they'll put it like a gay icon, a character up there. And then like, okay, this is diversity now. Like we're just now.
They're doing it in the comic books now, GG, and DC now.
But that's a way for them to actually act like they being on the right side of the justice and shit.
Yeah, they fuck Superman up, man. They fuck Superman up on that.
Man, I ain't watched Superman ever since motherfucking Rapper's Delight. I was like, fuck Superman. Because he's a fairy. He's supposed to talk to the girls in pantyhose. I was like, fuck yeah, they had me on some fuck some Superman shit a long time ago. Greg, I hear you, my brother, man. He say I'm late working, building this discussion. Yeah. What's up, my brother?
Yeah.
But I'm being honest about it, bro. You know? And you know, man, look. We need to have some information, bro. You know, I wish brothers was, you know, I wish we was up on game more than what we are, man. You know, I just wish we were, bro. And see, we lost our will for social organization, bro. That's all I can say, bro. Like on our own. Fuck them. Like on our own.
Yeah.
Like our own social organization, bro. Our own.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you had what's his name? What's the name? We had the ships and shit like that.
You talking about Garvey?
Yeah.
It ain't even got like Booker T. Washington had his own organizations and shit. Like I mean, that dude he was on to something.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
He was like, let's develop industry. Like when but you know, BGS and I had this conversation. You know, they both were working hand in hand. I think where black folks went wrong is, man, we gave up all of our own autonomy for the promise of integration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we just integrated into a burning house, man.
Yeah. Because
they know how to change the game. So instead of our teachers, you know, our own people educating us, now we got them educating us.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no interest in giving us quality education, bro. They all they doing is piping us off to the prisons and shit.
Yep.
They calling the police on fucking kids in the 4th to 5th grade, man.
Yeah.
Having to put in the handcuffs and shit.
Yep. Zip ties and shit.
That wasn't happening, man, back in the 60s, man. But you know, and before 1954 and all that.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah.
Them little old ladies was teaching really actually cared about the community, man. But then, you know, all these white motherfuckers came in. They was like, oh, we gonna make you think about everything else other than your own community. Either than your own group.
Yeah, they made shit. I mean, but that comes from the disconnect, you know, because we lost sight of what real education is. You know what I'm saying? What it needs to, you know, to move one generation to the next. You know,
man. All I say is before, like I believe Rousseau more so than I believe Locke or did I believe Hobbes. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm Rousseauian. Because I believe that, you know, like we should decide together on how we move. We don't need a messiah for real, but having a story about one would be good. But but the whole idea is that we need to just have like collective decision making and do something and actually fucking do it and be dedicated to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry about like, okay, well, what exactly do we need to do beforehand? We'll decide what we need to do. Let's just decide what the fuck we need to do and get together and do some shit. And don't try to do it all at once. Do small things a little at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And build up the practice. That's what we lack. We lack the practice. Take Robert rules, man. Just start making decisions and shit. Form an organization and just like, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, well, we decide together what we're going to do. Everybody argues for a few hours about what the fuck we need to do next, and then we fucking make a decision and do it. It ain't as difficult as it seems, but like we too busy trying to make a living and caught up in everything else to even actually govern ourselves. That's, you know, it's difficult. You know, when you're out of practice or something, getting back into the practice of something, or even like self-governance it's difficult, man. It requires a lot of responsibility, and you may fail, and that's another thing that prevents brothers from actually taking, you know, a chance and doing some shit too. That like they're afraid to fail. Like talking to that girl, she might shoot you down, so you never holler at her at all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? Oh, she bad. She ain't fucking with me. Damn, that's 1,000 deaths right there. You done cut yourself. That's one of the cuts that's gonna kill you.
Shoot themselves in the foot already, man.
That's boy. I'm telling you, boy. I used to be on 100. Like nigga, I don't give a fuck. Like if she say no or yes, thank you for telling me no. Cause that let me know I can talk to the next one. That's how I used to think about it. That's a show how I was. But that was you young, you feel with a lot of testosterone, and
But back then too, women were more expecting of the shit. You know what I'm saying? It was a different, I don't know if it will work today because bitches are weird today, bro. You know what I'm saying? They weird.
Shit, I ain't gonna holler at no brand new women no way because I'm fucking 50. So you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna be talking to no motherfucking R. Kelly motherfucking type chick. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be a grown ass woman I'm talking to. So either they like I done had younger women, man, be like, damn boy, this nigga's you wavy, baby, you saucy. I'm like, okay, well, cool, let's get it on then. But I'm not about to I don't do online dating and shit like that, bro. I don't know how to do that. Like I'm not part of it. I've been on it, and then I seen motherfucking women in public that like hit me up on fucking the dating app, and I ain't even respond to the shit. Like, and I know she's sitting there looking at like, damn, this nigga right here in the flesh. Like, yeah, I'm right here in the flesh, and you was not hot on that motherfucker, but your ass is kind of fat right now. What's happening? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just how it go. But like I'm not into that sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? But it's a lot of women out here, man, that's older and single, and they really can't keep a dude though. They really can't. It's a lot of dudes just running through them. You know what I'm saying? Like just giving them steady beef injections and shit. And they wondering like, why can't I keep a dude? Because you're not doing shit traditionally. Like you don't even give a fuck about guys. You don't know how to approach a dude either. How to treat a dude. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they mamas and their grandmamas knew, but the grandmama's babies, boy, them some fucked up babies, man. Like I saw the transition. But like my father, man, he one of them babies, man, who had a different kind of life than his parents did. Because his mother and father were together until death. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way families were. He was the first one to have kids from different women and shit. And just a different set of environmental conditions, man. Just different things, bro.
Yeah.
And the 60s, the sexual revolution, the it's your thing, do what you want to do. I can't tell you who to sock it to and all that kind of shit. Like that was real talk, man. Like it was a different kind of system brewing in the air. And, all authority was resisted against and challenged and shit like that. And so the mores from that still exist.
Yep. These chicks these days, man. You go out there and talk to these chicks, you know what I'm saying? They looking to compete with you more than, you know what I'm saying? They might even like you, but they like, man, I gotta compete with this nigga somewhere. You know what I'm saying? For attention. You know what I'm saying? He getting too much attention. I'm trying to be this new social media queen and shit. And this nigga shining. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I can fuck with him and shit.
Man, look, if put it this way, it's one thing to have internal competition to make each other better. But like if you're not part of the same team, like these women don't think they part of the same team with us. So why the fuck would you want to be with somebody that ain't on your team? Like if I'm you and me together and I'm gotta watch you more than the motherfucking enemy, then what the fuck am I even with you for? Like if you constantly envious of me or what the fuck I got going on, you are the enemy.
Yeah.
You worse than the enemy. Because you're going to bring me closer to the jaws and the clutches of the enemy.
Yeah.
Just because you spiteful as a motherfucker. You might not even have shit to gain from this other than to see me fall. And women can make a nigga fall in this culture, bro. Period. They'll have your ass rolling on 4 flat tires, straight up. You'd be like, damn, nigga, I was sitting on big boy rims.
Yeah,
Now you on them straight hub caps. You know, you rolling on donuts now. Real talk, bro. And that's why guys got to be careful. But I mean, it ain't like, you know, I don't know, man. I'll talk more about this tomorrow. But like Rousseau talked about this shit. It's about amor propria. You know what I'm saying? It's like social conceit. Like these women don't even give a fuck about going to school for real, other than the way what it make them look like in comparison to other people.
Yep.
And I can see men doing this shit because, you know, men are dumb and stupid any fucking way. But now you got women on the same dumb, stupid shit that men were on.
Yeah.
I want to be an alpha male too. I want to be at the top of the hierarchy. Like, for what? Like, we got kids and shit. Now you want to. Now everybody want to. Like, I want to be at the top. I want people to honor me. I want plaques and honors and shit.
Yeah. Some type of special award.
Man, fuck all that, dude. In my life, all I wanted to do was to work, have me like enjoy the shit that I like to you know, enjoy, have access to, you know, my little beer and shit like that, some cigars, and to have a good time, man, to pass a good day till I got to do the shit the next day, and to take care of my kids and my family, man. That's it. Have a nice place to live, you know. Don't have to have like the biggest house, just a nice house. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you know, just have some decent shit. But nowadays, man, you partner up with women, man, they so busy worried about what the fuck you doing, where your career is, where theirs is, and how you not better than them. Like I've heard women actually say this, you think you better than me. Like, huh? Apparently, you think you better than I am because you eat the thought that you think I'm better than you has entered into your head. Like, who the fuck thinks like that? Who thinks like that?
Yeah, you can't
even. You think
one person that thinks that if another man trying to compete with another man, you're a woman. You're not supposed to compete with a man.
You think you better than me. You think you smarter than me. Like, listen here, lady. You got to be one special dumbass motherfucker to think I'm trying to demonstrate that I'm smarter than you. You might have an opinion about some shit. I have an opinion, but like I hate to talk politics with women, especially dumbass women too. Like to me, it's like, okay, why am I having a conversation with you about the history of black folks in the United States when you really don't give a fuck about black people anyway? That's apparent. You really caught up in neoliberalism and individualism and what's best for you. Like I've heard, you know, like women say black folks don't need reparations because they'll just waste it.
Yeah,
I heard men say that shit too, but like those type of people I have no conversation for real. But you know, like, well, black people will just blow it anyway, so they don't need it. Like, you wouldn't say that to any other damn group of people on the planet.
Right.
But you'll say that about your own group and all this black shit, but you got all this goddamn weave in your head and shit, but you think you glamorous. You look like fucking a fool to these people. You look like a dumb fucking fool to these people, man.
Let's keep it real, GG. When people said that black people is going to take the money, it's their business where they take the money. You don't ask anybody else that gets money handouts. Hell, this gave $450 billion to some group. You ain't worried about what they're gonna do to spend the money, but it's always about competition with other people. Say, I don't want nobody else to have money like me, because it's a sport thing. It's something I gotta look more above you and look down on you as a black person.
Man, look, all this petty Annie bullshit amongst black folks, man. Look, the middle class in America is shrinking. It's just a fact. You got more old people than you got young people. And the Social Security system is about to come under strain, man. It just is what it is, bro.
Yeah,
We're not even reproducing now.
it ain't looking
We
good.
got a gender war. You got men who want to be women and shit. You got women who want to be men. You got women who are with women, and one of the women is a man now, and the woman is like used to be a man, and now they having a baby. Just weird, crazy shit, bro. I just like I just don't like. To me, I'm. It's some weird shit, bro. I'm telling you, I don't care if it like I'm Archie Bunker now. Then I'm Archie Bunker, man. It is what it is. But this shit just seems weird to me, bro. You got everybody wanting to be the top dog, and it's all about me, and how I look and my advancement and me doing this. The idea of the collective is out of the fucking like realm of possibility. It's all about. That's why these women are going to get all these fucking degrees and shit because they want to be esteemed. They want to be able to do this shit at like dinner parties to talk about their education and shit. Like fuck all that, bro. Like what you getting educated for? Like for Booker T. Washington, the education was the context in which industry was going to be built and shit like that. What's the use of having all the education if all you're going to use it for is to go work for somebody else and get them rich and spend a greater portion of your productive life working in service of somebody else and they shit and fulfilling their dreams?
Yeah.
What's the point?
No sense.
Then you accumulate a whole bunch of shit, debt, loans and shit like that for what? So you can, look a certain way and we on the move, baby. I like our status is connected to bullshit. It's man, I'm done with it, bro. I'm 3 hours in, bro. It's time me. I'm hungry. I'm hungry too, bro. So it was always a pleasure, man. Chaos, send me, like music that you think would be dope.
Okay.
Not like already made beats, but like the shit that inspires you, like you know what I'm saying, like some weird shit. So I can know like where you coming from. It could be like anime if that's what you into. I don't know what you into, man. I'm into a whole bunch of different stuff. So I might be inspired by the blues, jazz 1 minute, gospel music the next minute. You know what I'm saying? So ain't no telling, man. Like it might be a movie theme or
the Rifleman. You need to send them some Rifleman.
I don't even know what the hell that is, man.
The Western, the Western, or the Rifleman from back in the day. The motherfucker that had he had the rifle and shit. He could shoot faster than the motherfuckers with the handgun and shit. He had a son named Mark and shit.
Hey, bro, hey. I know you was watching them motherfuckers with your daddy, wasn't you? Your uncle or something.
Yeah, that's it.
They the motherfuckers love them westerns. When that shit or them old ass war movies come on, they sit there and watch that shit in black and white. But them movies don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They do, but you see a woman and fighting and winning and shit.
Yep.
All them Ernest Borgnine movies and shit, and movies with Clint Eastwood and John Wayne and shit like that. Them movies got Jane Wayne in them now.
Yep.
Straight up. So anyway, man, hey, look. So ain't no more. You know what they used to call the movies? Man movies, and then you had chick flicks and shit. Ain't no more motherfucking man movies and chick flicks no more. They all mixed in the same bag.
Yeah, they in the bag. They in the same bag. But there's a new movie. Son Johnson just put out. I just found out from him with Wesley Snipes and fucking the comedian Kevin Hart is coming out on Netflix on the 24th. It's a true story. Something I don't know. Something. It looked good though. It looked good. It looked like it might have some of the misandry. It might not have all the misandry in it and shit. So.
Yeah, but I mean, misandry ain't gonna last too much longer, man. It seems like it's here to stay, but like you the only way it's gonna really be suppressed, man, they keep giving us these chemicals, man. It's like they feeding the saltpeter, bruh. They feeding the saltpeter, man. Anyway, y'all be easy, man. I got to get the hell up out of here. I'll be here all damn night, man.
I'll
It's 3
talk.
hours,
All right.
man.
All
I'll holler
right.
at y'all, man.
I want to keep it 100. Hey, peace.
Peace, y'all.
Take care.
Peace.